you are. Whenever I see myself, I guess. All right. Good evening, everyone. It is now 7 p.m. on April 28th, 2022, and welcome to the school committee meeting in the Holliston Library. I am calling this meeting to order. All members are present with the exception of Ms. Dvorsky, which I believe she'll be attending shortly. So I'm going to start off with our consent agenda. Does anybody have any, questions or anything they want me to pull out from the consent agenda before I read that? Okay. All items are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the committee so requests, in which event the item will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Moved by Amanda, seconded by Stacy.
Moved by Amanda, seconded by Stacy. All in favor? Thank you. All right, and we will move on to communications. Hi, student representatives.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. I'm pulling out the list of things that we have. I thought Roma was going to be here, but
Yeah,
I wasn't able to make our meeting yesterday, and she did, but I have a list. But so some of the stuff I can't elaborate on, but
Okay.
I do have a list. So the first thing is the Teen Truth Assembly that we have today. I think that went really well. A lot of his stories were very touching, and then the debrief that we did afterward I think was very helpful as well. In my class, we got to go over the ways that it resonated with us, and people shared some very vulnerable stories that I was moved by personally. So I think that was good, and I think a lot of students really enjoyed that. Just in time, yeah. The next thing is spring sports are in full gear right now. So I play lacrosse. We've all had games. There was a track meet today. And then do you want to talk about the chorus field trip and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Mike.
So there was a chorus field trip. I think it was on Tuesday. So they were dismissed, I think second block, and they basically went to Boston. They saw a show. They had a nice dinner. Yeah, they had a lot of fun. Got back late. So yeah.
Do you know what show it was?
I don't. I heard the name, but I don't remember it right now. But yeah, and I think they visited the Gardner Museum as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then there is the one acts that are coming up in the spring. Like I said, I don't have too much information on that. I'm not sure if you know.
Yeah, I don't know if we picked the date yet.
So those are coming up. And then the lawn signs for the graduating seniors, they're doing again this year, which is exciting. So those are available to order.
Do you know how much the lawn signs are?
I'm not sure. I think it's there's a link on Facebook.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
They're 30, and you have to order them by May 1st.
Okay.
So by next week.
Which is very Sunday.
Sunday.
And then AP exams are also coming up. I think they're starting next week, and then in the next few weeks, students will be taking those. Do you want to go?
And so senior prom, or the prom, it's been moved from Gillette. So sort of as an apology, Gillette Stadium has basically put on a field day for the seniors on May 6th.
That's nice. When is that going to be, Roma?
May 6th.
Oh, okay.
On Friday. So we're all just going to be bussed there, I think, and just have fun on the field.
Yeah, I think they're letting us go on the field and do. We have an assembly about it tomorrow actually.
Okay.
To go over what we're going to be doing.
Well, that's exciting.
That is exciting.
Yeah. And then the last thing on our list is a member of NHS is holding a book swap that's going to be taking place on Saturday. I think she posted that on Holliston Happy. I don't have the details right here, but I can definitely get those. And that's it.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? I do, but does anybody else have any questions of students? Perhaps?
But I think I have a screenshot of the book swap information I can find.
Yeah, I think I could try to pull it up
I think
really
I
quick.
screenshotted it because I have many books to donate.
So while you do that, can you guys tell me a little bit about the assembly that you had about Teen Truth? I really would like to hear more about it if you have time.
So it was mostly centered around mental health. So a speaker came in, I think his name was Caleb. I forget his last name, but So he basically, he's ex-Army, he used to play in the NFL, and he was basically just talking about, like, his struggles in life and how, like, mental health, like, even though it may seem really isolating, like, there's, like, a lot of people can also relate to what you're going through. And there was this one really powerful thing he did in the middle of the assembly where he basically asked students to stand up if they'd ever felt like if they've ever had, like, depression, anxiety, stress, like, body image issues. And I think, like, 3/4 of the student body, like, stood up. And I think that was a really moving moment because we don't really, it's so stigmatized talking about mental health. So, like, just looking around and seeing our classmates just standing up and knowing that you're really not alone. Like, a lot of kids are going through this. It was kind of worrying, but also, like,
Validating.
yeah.
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 That's
It is worrying and also validating.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. Was there anything, did you go to a breakout session as well, Leah?
Yeah, I can talk about that more.
I think, Did you go to the classroom?
Yeah, okay. Just after class. So each teacher had like I think it's like just like a sheet of paper, and then there was little like prompts for the students to respond to. So it was like, how did it resonate with you? And then like questions that I brought up, I think. And then we got the chance to like give those back to the administration as well. And then, like I said, students were sharing very like emotional and like personal events. So, and I think it's a great opportunity because it's not every day that you'd be sitting in Spanish class talking about how you got bullied in middle school.
Yeah.
So, like, I think it was great, and I think students and myself agree it'd be beneficial to have stuff like that more often, where you can like talk openly about like trauma and things like that.
And there was also a leadership summit after, I think for 2 hours, so I attended that. And so it was sort of split. So in the beginning half, we sort of just delved more into mental health and how we can address our own issues with mental health and what we're going through. And then the second half was basically what we can do to improve our school culture, and like suggestions we have for administration, for our teachers, for our fellow students. And basically we did like a brainstorming session. We had a lot of good ideas. A lot of students put forth some good ideas. I think admin was there to take note, and yeah.
And that was all that was shared with Ms. Bottomley?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
So I echo everything they said. So in the Leadership Summit, thanks, that's fine. So the Leadership Summit, we ended up having just under 50 students who participated in the Leadership Summit. We actually had 40 going into today, and then 10 in the moment of hearing the assembly asked if they could join. So that was fantastic. So that spoke, I think, volumes about the power of the speaker.
Yeah.
So in the Leadership Summit, at the end, and I was there, it was great to hear. All the different groups had brainstormed, and so then each group, there was a representative who stood up and talked about some of the problems that they've seen in the school, and then solutions and ideas. And it was, some of them were sort of small solutions, some of them were big, long-term solutions. But it was really nice to hear from the student perspective, and it was nice to, I really appreciated the honesty and the vulnerability that students showed, because they were able to really connect with how they're feeling personally, but they were also able to give really honest feedback, not always easy to hear,
Right.
But really honest feedback about their experiences and what they see as some of the issues. And there were a couple of themes that emerged, so we have them all on nice big chart paper, and we're going to be compiling that. So that was very helpful from the Leadership Summit. From the classrooms, what was nice is that each teacher had students using a Padlet, which we now have saved as PDFs from all the teachers, so that we can, and it's anonymous, but so that we can get that feedback as well. Students were asked to submit one truth or one piece that they could improve, so something they could take away and commit to working on in the future, whether it's something in school or whether it's something personal. So that was a really nice piece as well, because we have a ton of great data to look through. I mean, it's going to take us a little while to go through all that, but we have a lot of really great data and feedback from students, both in the Leadership Summit and throughout the school. So.
And is that something you're going to bring to us to see at some point, or to?
Absolutely.
Great.
It'll take a little time.
I'm
to
sure.
go through,
I
but
just,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Yeah. So I was working with Jariel Vernay for this assembly. So we've been meeting pretty regularly. He created a survey, using SurveyMonkey, he created a survey that went to both the faculty and the students.
Oh, great.
So the nice thing is there's some easy data just
Yeah.
in terms of, was this beneficial? It was a pretty short survey, but was it beneficial? Was it relevant to you? And then there were some open responses. So those are the pieces that'll take us a while to go through.
Right.
But the initial feedback from the survey, from the graphs, was that the large majority of students felt like it was really powerful, it was beneficial, they really enjoyed the experience. So.
Great.
And I know Mr. Vernay is actually doing a presentation in May. Is it the second of the, I forget which one, but
I think it's the second.
I think it's the second. And he's going to be going over the Metro West data, so this would be a good way to incorporate it, bring that into that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nicole, I didn't
Always happy.
drag you back in.
Always happy to talk about
And thanks for sharing that, ladies. Okay.
And then I have the information about the
Oh, great.
book swap. So it's organized. It's organized by Zoe Gahn. She's a senior, and it's going to be this Saturday from 10 to 12 in the parking lot. So you can bring old books, trade them for new ones, and I think it's like take as many as you donate.
All right. Awesome. Okay. Thanks, ladies. All right, we will move on to school committee individual comment. Does anybody have anything to share with the school committee this evening? Catherine.
I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody who organized and worked on the 18th Century Days. It's been a long time for these kids to have gone anywhere.
Yeah.
Years since they've been on a field trip. And they were adorable, and it went over really well. And it's a huge amount of preparation and a ton of volunteers. So just wanted to say thank you for making them have that happen, because the two grades above them didn't get to go.
Right.
So it's so nice to see that returning.
Yes.
And I got to wear a bonnet.
Yes. And the whole outfit.
The whole outfit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Brings me back. Does anybody else have anything?
Just
Go
a
ahead.
quick plug for the high school play, She Kills Monsters, which is May 5th, May 6th, May 7th at 7:30 p.m.
Okay.
It's a really good play. Yeah.
Okay, and I have just one thing, which is that I just wanted to thank the Select Board for their partnership and support for signing off for our statement of interest with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, which we are submitting tomorrow. And fourth time's a charm, right, ladies? We'll see what happens, but I appreciate their support and their partnership, and I just want to give a shout out to the Select Board to thank them for that. Okay. Is there anyone that is here to address the school committee? No. All right, I will close public comment. And we're going to move on, well, we were going to move on to presentations, but we have Dominique Trottin, who is here, and so I'm just going to move things out of order because I had him under new business, but just so they don't have to stay all night. I wanted to move that up on the agenda so he can talk to us about a French exchange program, so come and join us wherever you can find a spot. Shoot. All right. I don't know. Should I ask?
Well, thank you for adjusting your schedule.
Sure, no problem.
Appreciate that.
It's so nice to see you. It's been, I don't know the last time we saw you. It's nice to see you again.
Before I start, I just wanted to mention, I've been in education for a while, and today was a really special day at HSS. This presentation at the high school was very moving, and yes, and the conversation that followed in the classroom were also very interesting and moving as well. So I thought that was a very productive and effective way to address some of those issues. So kudos to the admin, but also kudos to the students who really responded well to it too. So on to this exchange program. So I'm going to give a brief history. We don't have a lot of time, but I just wanted you to get a sense of where this is coming from and what's happening, and not any intention of trying to keep anybody in the dark as far as the dynamic. So about 2 years ago, I was brainstorming with Peter Botello, trying to respond to a need we had for, the community was mentioning that they were interested in trying to create some exchange program for French immigrant students. So I took it upon myself and started connecting people. One of the person that I contacted was someone in Washington, D.C. at the French Embassy, Nelson Lapitouche, who helped us kind of try to locate schools or districts that could be interested in trying to do an exchange. The conversation became larger, and the French consulate in Boston became involved, and then all of a sudden we ended up not only having an interest from a school or a district, but a whole region of France who wanted to try to partner with us. So my contact became Nathalie Lane in France, and we started a conversation with her about a year ago. The goal was strictly to try to set up a exchange program. Through the conversation and the back and forth, it became something bigger, trying to include other things. They offered a memorandum of understanding that was sent to central office. We looked at it, we reviewed it together, and Dr. Koska signed that document on March 2nd of 2021, officially trying to create this connection with this region. Then COVID came and all those things, and everything stopped. Early this year, I was contacted by Nathalie Lane and asked me, is there any interest of trying to squeeze something for next year? I said, I don't know. I can look, I can see. So we organized some sort of a schedule to try to get a sense, would that be feasible? Could this work? So I brought in our administration at the high school and tried to get a sense, could we make this work? And then we came up with this proposal. I tried to get sense of the interest from the community. There is interest. There are about 26 students who would love to do this exchange program. I totally understand that we cannot do anything without your approval and your understanding of what we're trying to do. But because of the nature of time and constraint that the French side has, because for them, they would be coming in October, so there's more pressure on their side. So I said, okay, well, I'll try to do what I can to try to move things forward. So we have two contacts in France, Nathalie Lane, and there's also Mathilde Rondeau, and they both work for the French Ministry of Education, and they're both available to our community, to our family, and to the students during the whole exchange while they're in France, 7 days a week. So there are contacts. They have experience with exchange programs. This is not their first exchange program. They do exchange programs with other schools, mostly in Canada. So we're more of the risk factor for them because we don't have that experience. So there's this notion of trust that takes place. I've developed a relationship with them, and they've got to know us, and Karen Achenbach has been on some of those video conferences. And we are at the road where we need to kind of figure out, is it something that we can actually try to do or not? I know that during one of this presentation, there's one slide that refers to 4 to 17 years old, and maybe there was some confusion around that. That's simply the language that's in the Memorandum of Understanding. So I was just adding this to make a reference that it's actually part of an official document, but by no means we're only focusing on high school students. So I just want that to be clear. And as you know, this is also 100% voluntary. So I did give information about budget, how much it would cost. It's kind of hard to predict. The only thing that I could get was up to March 2023 as far as prices for airlines. But I gave you a fork relatively of what was available right now for March, not April, because it was not available yet. There are also some information about school time and school schedules that I shared with you. When our students go in April, if they go in April, 2 weeks would be in school and 2 weeks would be during their vacation, because in France they have 2 weeks vacation. Their schedule would be adjusted so that they have time during the day to contact and connect with their teachers here, be able to also continue to progress in their education as well here. So, and there will be flexibility from building administrators on the French side. We got that clarified again, actually this morning. So it's all about that experience, trying to have an experience abroad in a family environment, trying to blend in, understand what's going on, also the experience at school, trying to improve proficiency levels, and also exchange the same on the other side for students coming here in October, trying to have experience as well. I'm personally very excited about the opportunity. This is not my project, this is a Holliston project, and I'm hoping that we can try to move this forward, but I do need your help.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? Minnie, go ahead. And Lisa?
So, would there be any visa issues, or how does that work? How does the processing of visa work? And do the French students who are coming here, they have to be French citizens? The ones who are going from US, do they have to be US citizens? Because any high school US student who wants to go to France, and if they don't have US citizenship, they would need a visa.
Yes.
And there are different categories of visa. So is that something that...
I'm
that
personally
has-
not the expert when it comes to that, but we can definitely give you the answer. It's only a month, so usually visas are open for a longer period of time. If there's a request for a student visa, we have plenty of time to apply for that. Also, I think we would get the support of the French consulate in Boston because they've been working with us.
Yeah, and usually it's considered a vacation, where they're going there for other reasons, so it's not a visa.
Right.
But I
If we-
would want to ensure,
Yes.
you're right, if it's a non-US
Yes.
citizen going, then we would make sure, we want to make sure
Yes.
that they're all set.
Especially if they're green card, it's different.
Right,
If
exactly.
they're like other visas, it's completely different.
Yes, and yes, absolutely.
Lisa, go ahead.
Two questions. So it said in here, I think it was like 2 weeks to 3 months, but you just said a month. So is it?
Yes,
It's going to be
it
a
was
month
part
for
of the
everybody?
language of that particular paragraph. I put it in there because it refers to the official document. The exchange is for 1 month for students to come here and for 1 month for students to go there.
Okay. And do we have any capacity to set aside some money to help students who want to go but can't afford it? Because I love this program, but I would want to make it, accessible.
I don't know the answer to that. Nicole might know, but it's something we can certainly look into. I mean, I think we would definitely want to be able to come up with some ideas for that, to have equity for students, for sure.
I was just going to add that when we had this sort of thing in my town, the Rotary Club, and there's a lot of different, monetary funds you can tap into from other places. But my question was, like, mechanically, how does this work? And maybe this is more of a question for Bottomley, but how does this work with their studies? Like, if they're going to take a month off, where does that fit in our curriculum, and how are they taking a month off?
Well, they're not taking a month off. They will stay connected to their teachers here. They will have time in their schedule in France to be able to connect, but also do some work. I'm hoping that our teachers here will be able to be flexible and work with us so that they have a positive experience while abroad. But this is not just fun and games. They understand that this, school is important, and vice versa. Students who are coming are going to have the same expectation. The parents are going to want to make sure that we give them time to study and also to connect with their own teachers back in France. So,
And one of the weeks is during April vacation. So it's 3 academic weeks, but 1 week is when we would normally have April vacation, or
Yeah.
spring vacation, I should say.
And then our students wouldn't be going until April, the students from France be coming in October, so we still have time to work out the logistics, but because of the needing to
Yes.
get people together, it has to be approved now, knowing that we still have some things to vet and then can share more information later.
we did also make sure that as far as any kind of testing or things that were going on in the building, April was really the ideal time for us to be able to do that.
Amanda?
Yes.
So I'm a high school teacher, and I often have students going away for extended periods
Sure.
of time. And my hope would be that you, as the program, would help facilitate that relationship between the student who's going away and their teachers. So it's not just the kids like, I'm going to be absent for the next 3 weeks, can I have all my work? Because that's kind of a hassle for the teacher and not
Yes.
super effective. But I'm assuming that you guys will also help work with the teachers to facilitate that as smoothly as possible.
Yes, hopefully I'm still here to be able to do all those things. And I've been volunteering my time to do this, and I'm doing that after my work. I will continue to do that because I think it's important, but also try to answer and respond to a need that people have come to me and asked for. I'll do my best. I know that on the other side, the people that we're working with are very motivated and they're really willing to try to do the same thing. Yes.
I'm wondering if we could do like a contract that the student signs with their teachers or something, just so that's cemented too.
Dawn?
And how many students would you expect to be able to take into this program? And am I correct in it would be freshmen through seniors, or is it just upperclassmen? What?
It's offered to students who are still going to be in the building. So the ninth graders will be 10th graders and so on and so forth. So 11th graders will be seniors the following year.
Okay.
Yes, and so far we have 26 families, 26 students who have started the process and they're waiting for an official green light to be able to say, yes, give my information to the region so that we can start doing placement.
And the region has a lot of families that are already interested
Yes.
in coming. They're waiting for us because they have a lot of families that are very excited about coming here.
Yes, so we're working with one high school. They are in Grenoble, they're working with 10 high schools. So they have plenty of demand, and for us, it's great because we can be, the students, as they fill up applications, they can put some requests or more specific things about what they'd like to see or what they'd like to be part of. And as they review their application, it's going to be easier for them to be able to kind of cater to that as well.
So, and that was to my next question, which is, will you be able to meet a request by everyone who wants to do it? So if you end up having 45 students that want to do this, is there a selection process, or will everyone be able to be
They
a
have
part of it?
hundreds of students who want to come here,
Okay.
I think, yeah, we can.
which is what they said. I'm not making it up. That's what they said.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're just going to try to match as many as you possibly can?
Ideally, yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm really excited that you're taking on this project. I really am. I'm just trying to figure out like how logistically that'll work. Like I was reading on the document that said 0 chaperones, and I was like, how does that work exactly?
Yes.
So I was concerned because I just feel like there wasn't enough detail for me to
Yes.
understand. And so whether there's, a website that we could be looking at, because if they already have established programs, maybe we could see what that's about to get more detail. I'm not saying that I absolutely think this is fantastic that you're putting this together. I just
Yeah.
feel like I need a little more detail. So,
Well, the chaperone piece is that the school is not really the connection, it's the parents, the families. So the families are dropping their students at the airport, and then they can decide how that transportation from Boston to Lyon happens. They can do it on their own. They can try to secure support through the airline. Once they get to Lyon, the French family is going to be there to pick them up. So they are not on their own. They're going to be together through the process. And once they get to Lyon, they're going to their family. So the need for the chaperone is not really there. We have the two people that are there that know their schools, they know their district, they know the city. They're much better off, they're better placed than us to try to respond to any needs that they would have when they're there.
So it's not a field trip.
And it's the same- And it's the
this is a
same
field
thing
trip.
here.
Yeah.
We're very equipped to try to deal with any problem that any students or family would have while they're here.
But it's not like they're at school, and so the Holliston Public Schools is legally responsible for the child's health while they're there. It's like they're, does that make sense?
Yes.
They're not at school when they're in
No.
France.
No, that's right.
right. That I participated in a program like
Yeah.
this when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I grew up in Needham, and we went for a month, and we lived with host families in Paris. But there was someone who was coordinating to make sure that our high school teacher came with us. Our French teacher came with
Yes.
us, so to ensure that we were, going when we were supposed to go, and going to classes when we were supposed to, and touring with us as well. So there was some connection to all of that. I'm just a little concerned about 14-year-olds just getting on a plane and going across, and it's just me as a parent saying, okay, make sure that you connect with that family when you get to the other side. So,
Well, the comfort level is different for every family, and like I said at the beginning, it's 100% voluntary.
right.
So that's the decision up to the family to decide if they feel comfortable with the process and the dynamic at play.
Right.
Dominique, I'd be happy to work with you on this as far as, because we do have to work with the town on
Yes.
insurance, because even though it's voluntary and the parents are signing off on this because it's school-sponsored. We still own the liability, so I'm sure we can come up with a plan. I think we can move forward. You know, I'm willing to work with you on it, but I do think that we want to look in at least that part, because even though the parents are signing off, because we're sending them, it's different than field trips that are completely after school and we have volunteers doing it, but it's a little bit different. So I'm happy to help you with that piece.
Okay.
We can look into that.
I was
Go ahead,
also
Minnie.
wondering that if we could also ask for maybe parent volunteers who could coordinate, because, I mean, honestly speaking, I would be very nervous, even though it's completely family. I'm just trying to think, sending my 14-year-old across to someone who's, I haven't met, I don't know the place, I don't know the language. I don't know, I kind of have my reservations there.
So is the idea that you'd have maybe one parent volunteer among the 26 to 40 students who agrees to go over there, so there could be a liaison if there was a medical emergency or
Yes.
if there was any kind of issue that came up?
And then all together.
Yeah.
And then all together, right? I mean, so that there
Brush
could
up
be
on my
some
French.
coordination even there, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, there are town kids. And,
Yeah.
that would be. Oh, and which also reminds me, is this only open to the kids who come in, or the homeschool, or even those kids can participate?
Homeschooled.
Like the kids who are...
It's open to people who are in the French immersion program and the traditional French program.
So the homeschool students normally have an opportunity to do all school events, but if they're not taking French with us, then
not,
that would-
But they are eligible if they are taking French. Is that?
Yes, I just don't know if any of our homeschool students do that, because I don't know if that they
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
opportunity to if they're, so.
I do have to say, I feel like we really need to look at that whole chaperoning idea.
Yeah.
I just, I think it's a great idea, I think program-wise, but, I took a group of students over to Ghana for a summer, and it was me and one other adult who were in charge of high school students, and we were in charge of all of making sure everything that they would need to care for while they were there. So I'm not sure that I would want to send all of our high school students over without someone, either from our administration or from one of our teachers or someone, just the way, like the Peru trip with Sylvia Bodmer, who takes, that Peru trip, she goes, I think there's probably another teacher that goes with them, and that's after school, it's like at the end of school year that they do that.
Are they
so-
going to families?
They would,
I don't know that they're going to
probably
families.
a world, 'cause
No, it's a trip that they stay together.
Yeah, they strip that they take together.
Yeah.
So, and then the other is that when they go to this trip, are they just kind of going to the WINS? Like, are any of our students staying together at the same schools, or are they going off to wherever those families have schools?
We talked about that with
Yeah.
them today, and they said that was, they said it kind of takes away from the experience if we send all students to like one location, but definitely they can be paired up and if somebody's really uncomfortable, they can even be, there was a possibility they could be together.
Yes.
They did.
It's also the same city, so they're only, 10 minutes, 20 minutes away through public transportation or the parents taking them. And they are going to be organizing and doing things together. Once the parents are selected, they will get together. The same thing here. Parents here are going to get together and they're going to think about things they could do together while the students are here.
And it's similar to, at least I feel like if they're sending us their children, they're trusting them to us, and, we feel perfectly capable of, as educators, helping their families and the students, then that's the resources they have on their end. These two women that we've been speaking with have been really, really wonderful and helpful in terms of like that they're really available, like you said, 24/7 for any need of a family or student. And just like that child coming here to us, I clearly trust everyone here to take good care of that child and include them in their family and take them on family trips. The expectation is not that you would then, which you would no one would do, is send them off into the winds from here. We would bring them into your family and they would do what your family was doing.
I think we could probably work something out if there is discomfort with the whole traveling piece, to have somebody go with them for a few days to help take them over, and then the same thing when they come back. I'm not sure we need to have somebody there the whole time, because we already have our two French people in place who would they will know more of what we need to do if there's anything that happens, because they live there.
But they don't know our students, that's all. That would be my concern.
So I'm sure we can make this
Yeah.
work. This is a really great project. I stand behind doing these experiences for students. I happen to, when my kids were younger, we did Asia camp and Japan camp, and I've had at least 4 or 5 students from, I still have a student, well, he's in his 30s now, that came to us when he was 16 and has visited us since, and we've had 5 students come. My children have never gone, so it was easier for me to take in, and it was for 2 weeks, but it was a wonderful experience for my kids. And then, but they did travel with their liaison, so I bet we can work something out on some scale, because this is really worth pursuing. But I wonder if we could vote or talk about if there are some criteria, we vote pending certain things being fulfilled.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable doing a provisional vote. I just want to have some more detail.
Yeah.
Are you guys comfortable with?
Remembering that the trip, it doesn't take place for us until April.
Right.
So the French families will have to make their own decision on how they want the travel to take place for October for the French students. But we have quite a bit of time to decide on the structure and how
That's
that's
true.
going to happen.
But I want to make sure that they have the same experience and have the same opportunities here.
Sure.
If we're looking for that same sort of oversight for our kids, they should have that opportunity here
So
too.
I have another question. Is there what's the vetting process like for the families? Are we just depending on they will provide us the list, and how are we vetting the families here?
From what I understand, the parents apply. I think there's a review by the building administrators, but also then the information is passed on to those 2 people who look at the information as well. They have a lot of experience with it, so I'm not sure that they know what to do. They also understand that this is something that's special, and they don't want to sabotage it, because they want to really build this relationship. So they want this first experience to be an awesome one.
Sure.
And it's the same for us. We want the people that are going to come here to have a great experience as well, because we'll build from there.
Okay.
And I think we can get, there are other districts in the state. So I know, for example, Braintree, I know they do this just from a personal experience, that my friend takes in a student exchange every year. So I think that can help ease, it's not specific to this program, but same idea, like it's a student exchange program. So I'm totally, I think we should.
In my former district, one of the reasons that Dominique brought me in was because we did an exchange with Japan. And so students, about 50 students came from Japan, a very small school, and then an exchange. So it's a wonderful experience for the students on both ends.
Amanda?
I think this is a wonderful experience, and I absolutely support it. I just want to put on everyone's radar screen to go back to the 3 weeks of class. It's really 6 weeks of class because of the block scheduling. So it's a consideration that we all need to be really mindful of, with a support piece around that. So.
Right. Might want to have a light 3rd term, maybe.
Yeah, if the kids are taking an AP exam.
Just saying, I don't know if I can do that exactly.
Yeah, because April, they'll come back and it's
AP.
right?
Yeah,
but
exams.
I would not want to put that burden on the principal.
No, I'm not. I'm just,
But that's
it's more that
for the
students might need to be
teachers,
mindful of it,
That's
too.
tough for the
Right,
teachers.
but I'm just saying, if something fell, if trigonometry or that fell
Sure,
into
I
term
know.
3, they're not going to have a lot of control to change that at the last minute.
Right.
I think that the contract and setting that up and criteria would be important.
There's
for them.
another factor, too, is our kids are French immersion students. They're capable of understanding and listening and reading materials in French. They can be placed in classrooms that are totally adequate for them, that respond to their needs. And it's not like a student who, has some minimal understanding of the French language, and they're going with enough luggage to be able to function there. So it's a different situation, and yes, they're going to be in classroom, but they'll be able to participate if they want to. So,
Okay, Catherine?
So in October, when their students come here, will our teachers be expected to make accommodations for them? Are they going to be sort of just sitting, the French students will be sort of sitting and listening and participating if they want to?
Yes.
Or is there some sort of...
there's no grading or anything on the part of our teachers. They are auditing in a way.
That's my concern, is
Yes.
putting more load
Yes.
on our teachers
No.
when new students come in.
Absolutely not. I'm just hoping it's going to enrich our community.
Okay. No, I have no doubt that it's a good
Yes.
program. I'm just, have to ask these questions.
So are you also looking for a shout out for parents to volunteer to host students while we're at it?
No, we already have our families, so it's
It's
more.
the same
Right,
families
right.
that are
Exactly,
sending the
yes,
students.
Exactly.
All right. So with that, does anybody have any more questions? I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the French exchange field trip. I don't have the name right here, but,
What's the name of the field trip?
Student French exchange program.
That's
okay, the Students French Exchange Program.
Moved by Dawn.
We can
Seconded by
make it
Stacy.
next to a cuter name in the future.
Yeah, I just, with the provision of some, other information that
looking
we're looking
into
for.
liability.
Liability issues.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
and academic issues.
Yeah, okay.
Coordination.
So it was moved by Dawn, seconded by Stacy. All in favor? Okay, that passes.
Get
Thank you very much.
planning.
Very exciting, thank
It is great, yeah, I appreciate your work on this, thank you.
On behalf of the parents and the students, thank you.
Thank you to Dominique.
It just brings,
thank you for
this is
running
just
it.
one more thing that brings us that much closer to.
To normalcy?
What normal feels
Yes.
like.
Yeah, that's so true.
And then some, like when
Really?
was the last time we had this kind of a program, so,
Very
yeah,
exciting.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we will now move on to presentations and review of the April 6th Professional Development Day with Ms. Menard, I believe.
Hi, everyone. Very quickly, you have a presentation in your folder. Governor Placentino did a lot of literacy work with Cynthia Merrill. They were reviewing the Fontes and Pinnell Continuum curriculum. Also worked on phonemic awareness with her, interactive writing, songs, and poems, using that same Fontes and Pinnell continuum, and worked on building units of study with our advisor, Cynthia Merrill. They worked on Seesaw, really looking at student reflection and portfolios. K1 and 2 did vertical and horizontal work. The Spanish teachers worked on Massachusetts World Language Curriculum Framework Implementation Series. It's really PD for the world language teachers. And then the K through 4 science teachers worked on mapping the science curriculum. And Miller, the grades 3 and 4 Montessori, worked on graphic organizers for responding to literacy. Grade 4 worked on reading behaviors and skill and strategy practice. Grade 5 ELA and social studies worked on student learning goal work. Our grade 5 math and science worked on creating a plastic pollution and environmental science unit. The Miller science teachers also worked on standards mapping. Special educators worked with Bobby French on reading instruction, and the Spanish and French teachers worked on that same curriculum framework implementation that I told you about. Rams and the high school both went to Khalees Warnham's presentation, the same one that the elementary school teachers had gotten before. Just to remind you guys, it's on making authentic connections. And they also explored with the remaining time Delta Math and actively learning training. And what that's doing is really supporting all learners close those learning gaps, meeting the students where they are and being able to give them assignments based on their understanding. And the world language teachers went on with the same DESE curriculum framework implementation series. The high school, as I said, also attended Khalees Warnham's presentation. Remaining time, the departments did work on curriculum standards, curriculum discussions, and curricular alignment. At the district level, our nurses, performing arts teachers, fine art teachers, and librarians all attended Khalees Warnham's presentation. The nurses, with the remaining time, did submit Medicaid and CHCS grant training. The performing arts teachers used the remaining time to look at their music survey and meeting notes review. The fine arts teachers spent the remainder of the time on district alignment. Librarians continue their work in analyzing collections for diversity. And then the ELL teachers that were present, remember some of them are part-time, so they didn't go to all PD, worked on the WIDA and EdWeb seminars. And they, just to give you a precursor, that we're going to capitalize on their expertise next year and have them train general ed teachers on WIDA standards because all general ed teachers are responsible for those too. very quick synopsis. Yes.
What is the CHCS grant?
It is, you asked me and I forgot.
Sorry.
real quick. I know. Let me look that up and get back to you.
That's okay. That's
Okay.
fine.
Yep.
Can you tell me what Delta Math is?
Yes.
can.
Yeah, there you go. Go for it.
Go, Amanda.
Delta Math basically saved us during remote learning. It is free. Let that sink in. And it's a math prep thing, similar to like a Khan Academy, if you know
Okay.
that, but you don't
Yes.
get restarted back to zero if you get a
that's
problem
good.
wrong. So that's
Yeah.
the big negative
didn't
of Khan
know that.
Academy.
That's good to
So
know.
their students can do problems. They have like every single topic from like decimals to BC Calc. They have tons of stuff on each. It's just like individual problem sets that you get it wrong and they explain it to you. There's also videos available if a student wants to watch a more detailed lesson of a topic. So it's great for enrichment. It's great for like reinforcement of particular skills. You can make tests and quizzes on it. There's a ton you can do with it. Like there's a ton that teachers can create themselves on it as well. And it's valuable and it's super, super user-friendly and easy to use for teachers and kids. Would you agree with me?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
And to let you know, CHCS stands for Center for Healthcare Strategies. And, excuse me, wrong one, sorry. Composite Healthcare System, and it's a medical information systems.
So when you said Delta Math, I thought it was like, you know how there's the new math? I thought it was another next level.
Like the Delta variant?
I thought it was like,
Yeah, right.
level math.
No, it's a good thing. Like she
I
said.
know, Delta everything.
I did
Okay.
make jokes about
Great.
that.
Does anybody have any other questions? Minnie, go ahead.
A little bit about Cynthia Merrill literacy work.
So at the elementary school level, both at Placentino and Miller, a big focus has been this year on literacy, and that will continue on next year. And before I got here, you guys would be able to answer better than I would, but they really looked at bringing in new curriculum. So we got Fontes and Pinnell. And so Cynthia Merrill is really working with the teachers how to unpack that and how to use that curriculum, right? The Fontes and Pinnell curriculum. It's not something that is always intuitive, and you really kind of have to kind of work together collaboratively to figure out how to implement it best. So they're really looking at those strategies on how to utilize Fontes and Pinnell to teach the standards most effectively.
Okay. Other questions? Nope. Okay.
Thank
We're
you.
going to, thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, we will move on to policy. Who's up?
Not me.
All right, Catherine.
Met since,
We need to schedule a meeting.
or the last whole meeting. Did you read it? Do you want to have a
Okay, so we have a first reading on ECAF, and then we have a second reading. Are we going to be ready to move?
We did meet.
Oh,
It was
Darn, now I probably am it. Darn it.
Tag. So, so we're going to do the first reading, and then
Yes.
we have GBEBD, second reading. Are you prepared for the second reading? I'm just trying to prep. Okay. And do we think we're going to be ready to waive and
I'll
vote on
read
that?
one and
Okay,
Amanda will read the
we'll
other.
just get started. Okay. So we'll start with security cameras in schools.
So I'm just going to read this, correct?
Yep, because you're going to read the whole
And
enchilada.
this we got from MASC.
Okay, 'cause there's no legal references on this one. We didn't get any online.
No, I don't think there were any, actually.
Okay, we'll have to cross-reference something, I'm sure, too, right?
To be determined.
Yeah.
Okay. The school committee works to maintain a safe and secure environment for its students, staff, visitors, and facilities. Security means more than having locks and making certain that doors are locked at the proper times. Am I reading that?
This is the edited version. I don't know why it's showing differently in yours. This is what's in the folder for me. This is the one
That's
with.
not what was
I know,
in my
that's the
folder.
original. I have no
great.
idea.
Are you in the right folder?
I'm in the. hang
Or you
on.
pulling?
No, this is April 28th. I don't know what's going on, but I'm in the folder and
That's what I
it's,
have in the folder too. That's
yeah, something's. Mine is.
Would you like to read it? Because I can't
I'll
see
put it
that
on the,
far.
okay, I will be happy to.
Because I don't have my...
Because that was the version that we had, and then we Holliston and I
Yeah.
did more. So
That's weird
I
that
would
that
happy to read
happened. I just printed what was in there.
I know, and his is showing that way too.
Okay.
I can't,
Yeah.
it's a technology
Mine's showing
glitch.
that.
but It's not us, it's not us.
I
it's
have
them.
that one from.
That's irritating.
So the Holliston School Committee works to maintain a safe and secure environment for its students, staff, visitors, and facilities. Security means more than having locks and making certain that doors are locked at the proper times. Security also means minimizing fire hazards, reducing the possibility of faulty equipment, keeping records and valuables in a safe place, protection against vandalism and burglary, the prosecution of vandals, and developing crisis plans. And then we deleted the next piece. And we went to the Holliston School Committee authorizes the use of security cameras in school district buildings and on its property to ensure safe and supportive schools for all students and staff. The cameras may be used to prevent vandalism and other negative behaviors, to safeguard district buildings, grounds, and equipment, and to monitor unauthorized individuals in or on school property. Security cameras may be used in locations as deemed appropriate by the superintendent or designee, which would be Mr. Boudet, in consultation with school officials as well as local law enforcement and emergency response agencies. They may be used in any area inside or outside of school buildings where there is no reasonable expectation of privacy. So clearly those are hallways and things that are open to travel.
Not bathroom stalls,
Not
is
bathrooms,
basically what you're saying.
correct.
Yeah.
The district shall notify students, and not within classroom settings.
Right,
because that is
inside a
sensitive,
classroom,
right?
yeah, okay.
The district shall notify students and staff through student and employee handbooks and appropriate signage that security cameras have been installed and may be used at any time. Students or staff identified on security cameras in violation of school committee policies may be subject to disciplinary action. The superintendent or designee shall ensure that proper procedures are in place and are followed regarding use, viewing, disclosure, retention, disposal, and security of video recordings or photographs from security cameras in accordance with applicable laws and regulations. A video recording used for security purposes in school district buildings and/or on school property shall be the sole property of the school district. All video recordings will be stored in their original format and secured to avoid tampering and to ensure confidentiality in accordance with applicable laws and regulations. Access to video recordings from security cameras shall be limited to school administrators, superintendent/designee, school principal/designee. Law enforcement and emergency response officials shall be granted access to video recordings or the security system after giving prior notice to the school superintendent/designee. The superintendent may, from time to time, issue further guidance that is consistent with current laws in this policy. And it came from Mask with our edits.
Okay. Questions? Comments? Go ahead.
So I know you said not in the bathroom stalls. Is it in the bathroom?
No, sorry. Not the bathroom, sorry. I was being a little bit,
Should be a little fluffy.
yeah, I was being a little bit flippy. Yes. So not in the bathrooms, not in the classrooms.
Especially not the stalls.
Especially not in stalls. I just wanted to be, I was trying to be very clear that we're not doing that kind of, it's very pervasive, not pervasive, I should say. And not invasive, sorry, I'm not even using my right words. Anyway, other questions? Go ahead, did you have another question?
No, I was saying I was also wondering that.
Oh, okay.
That was the first thing that strikes.
No, not invasive. Reasonable expectation of not of privacy, so. Okay, other questions?
And just to add to the appropriate signage will be like, there will be a sign like, here's a camera.
Yes, yeah.
They're not in sneaky spots.
It doesn't say, I don't know if it says it on here, but it will not be, it's not going to be live monitored. Do we need to say that, or does it matter whether we say that?
Because it might be.
Well, let me see how.
I mean, what do you mean by live monitoring?
As in, like, someone's watching the cameras at all times. No one's doing that.
We don't have people to do that.
Yeah.
We would only look at video footage if we had a situation.
And you, right, so you may be, so you to say, I wouldn't say, well, I'd be nervous not saying that just
'Cause they
because
might
that
be.
means
You
that
might be.
you might need.
Okay.
Might be a
you might need to. Got
Because
it.
if you had an
Yep.
ongoing situation that you were
Okay.
trying to prevent,
Right.
you might put a monitor temporarily, so that's
Right.
why.
So I
it's-
wouldn't
Okay.
say either way.
Right.
Okay, you don't have to say, I just didn't know whether there was, whether we had it.
Right at the entrance of the bathroom?
Okay.
The entrance would be.
I think there's a couple
right?
places where we're supposed to put HPS instead of
Always, yeah.
like school district, but other than that,
right?
Did anybody have other?
The HR.
Go ahead, Marcia.
Was there any student input when you were making the decision, or if administration was?
Well, unfortunately, we've had a number of incidents, and we haven't had an opportunity to speak with students about it. But we had agreed to our capital budget because of the concerns we've had. We've had some vandalism and bathrooms destroyed, and because we have no cameras, we haven't been able to do anything about it. So if we ask for student input, it wouldn't change that we have a need. So I'm not really sure, other than saying we don't want them or do want them, I'm not really sure what else. If you have some ideas that you'd like us to look into, I'm happy to, but I don't know what we would vet in this process, because we are one of the very few high schools, and we're now seeing mostly elementary and middle schools also all have cameras at this point. So we're unique in that way that we don't have them. And a lot of it is also going back to things like the active shooter. I mean, our schools are used as community buildings as well. So this is beyond just the school day. This is an ongoing situation.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if there was any student.
There wasn't in this case, because it was more about administration having a need that needs to be filled and a concern. In fact, I had another superintendent talk to me and show me a video. It was after hours in the building, because, you know, a lot of events are here when we're sitting in here and the doors are open too. And the superintendent showed me a video that they had a person wandering around their elementary school after hours while the basketball game was going on. Fortunately, a custodian stopped the person and said, why are you in this part of the building? So they looked at the video footage, and this person was wandering the building for a considerable amount of time. We would assume that there was a malicious intent there, so that was kind of scary. So they felt very fortunate they had those. So really, this is about preventing incidences, not really about hoping that incidents to happen. We're hoping to prevent the incidents.
Lisa?
Yeah, and one of the things, I just wanted to add, we did talk about this in budget subcommittee, and I think we talked about it in the full committee as well, about privacy issues and, you know, knowing that some people would have feelings about that. And I think one of the things that I found most persuasive in terms of, you know, my own concerns about that was someone had said that, you know, with cell phones everywhere today, I mean, if you're a high school student, you guys know, like, there's no expectation of privacy anymore, because anybody can be taking a picture or, you know, using their video camera at any time. So, I mean, not that that's a great thing, but there's already that sort of, you know, understanding from people that when you're out in public, you're out in public, you know, and you know, there could be security cameras all kinds of places too, in businesses and street corners and whatnot. So we did talk about that issue. It's not something that we took lightly.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, so that's the first reading of that, right? So we'll have to come back for another. Okay. So we will move on to Gbebd, online fundraising and solicitation, second reading. Let me see if I have the right
Susan,
one.
can you pull it up just so I can make sure of the right one?
This one has green on it.
Well, I figured it out.
He did.
I figured it out. When you're not an editor, you are seeing basically the last version of the version without
Which I
edits
didn't
made
realize.
to it.
I never knew that.
You know, and so we're going to have to
We
work
need
on
to be,
some protocols.
yeah, we need to be editors.
That's what we'll have to
But
do.
without editing it.
Right,
You can't, I'm saying you can't edit
I
what's
get
there.
it. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
got to be done here.
correct.
So, right, so what we need to do is, once we make people editors when we're ready to put into the school committee folder.
Okay,
That-
that makes sense. Okay.
No, that's fine, but I'm
It's just
just
another little-
surprised that I wasn't considered an editor.
I know, since you were the one that wrote it, like, that's just, that
It's
doesn't make
fine,
any sense.
it's fine, I'm sorry.
sure that was
This
just a
copy
mistake
looks
on
like
this
it's right, though. Mine's got green on it. and-
Daisy's printed one is different from mine. You want to read?
Cool.
I need to take some responsibility tonight. Holliston Public Schools.
Yes, of course. Thanks for joining us, ladies.
Thank you.
Wait, that's an option?
No, not for you, it isn't, just for them. They're special. Bye, good night, ladies, thank you.
Okay, so online fundraising and solicitations dash crowdfunding, GBEBD. Holliston Public Schools, in paren HPS employees shall comply with all of the following provisions relating to online solicitations and the use of crowdfunding services for school-related purposes, as well as all applicable laws, regulations, and district policies. No online fundraising may occur except as provided below. The superintendent or their designee shall have final authority to approve any online fundraising activities by HPS employees and shall determine and communicate to principals the circumstances under which online fundraising proposals shall require superintendent or school committee approval in accordance with law and school district policy, in parens KCD. The principal of each school shall approve all online fundraising activities within their buildings prior to any employee posting any such fundraising solicitation. Any solicitation shall be for educational purposes only, in paren, field trips, supplies, supplemental materials, books, school-sponsored events / activities, etc., in paren. The solicitation of personal items, such as coats, nutritional snacks, etc., shall only be to benefit students directly. To the extent an employee solicits any technology or software, the employee shall secure the prior written approval of the Director of Technology or designee prior to any such solicitation. Any employee seeking to display or post a photograph of a student in conjunction with the fundraising solicitation must first secure the written consent of the student's parent or guardian. Employees shall not use a crowdfunding source or set up their appeal in such a way that they are asking for donations directly from people over whom the employee making the request has authority, or with whom the public employee is having official dealings, such as parents, guardians of students in a teacher's classroom. The solicitation can say, in quotations, classroom X needs tissues and crayons, end quote, but it shouldn't be directed to parents, guardians who have shared email addresses with the teacher for purposes of communicating about their student, end of parentheses. Employees using crowdfunding services shall periodically disclose in writing to the superintendent the names of all individuals whom the employee has directly solicited in any manner, including but not limited to oral, written, or electronic solicitation. The superintendent shall maintain these disclosures as public records available for public review. Employees may only use crowdfunding services that send the items or proceeds solicited by the employee directly to the employee's school or to the school district. Employees must verify under the crowdfunding services terms and conditions that they meet all requirements for such solicitation. Items or proceeds directly sent to employees are considered gifts to the employee and may result in violation of state ethics laws. If an employee's proposal is approved by the crowdfunding service, the employee agrees to use the donated materials solely as stated in the employee's proposal. If a solicitation is not fully funded within the time period required by the crowdfunding service, or the solicitation cannot be concluded for any reason, every attempt will be made to return donations to the donors. Donations unable to be returned shall only be used as account credits for future solicitations. Unless otherwise approved by the superintendent in writing, all goods and/or proceeds solicited and received through any online solicitation shall become the property of the school committee and not of the individual employee who solicited the items or funds. The employee is prohibited from taking any such item or funds to another school or location without the superintendent's written approval. Legal references: Mass General Law, Chapter 44, 53A, Chapter 71, :37A, Chapter 268A:3, and Chapter 268A:23. The Ethics Commission Advisory Opinion, EC-COI-12-1. Cross-references: GBEA, which is Staff Ethics / Conflict of Interest Policy, GBEBC, which is the Gifts to and Solicitations by Staff. Oh my goodness, that word tonight. And KCD, Public Gifts to Schools. The source is MASC from February 2018. Note: Crowdfunding services are defined as any online service used for the solicitation of goods, services, or money from a large number of people via the internet or other electronic network. Is that right? Or should I say networks? Examples include, but are not limited to, GoFundMe, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, YouCaring, and Donors Choose.
Okay. Questions, comments?
I just was going to make a suggestion. I wonder if we want to say in the last paragraph, become the property of the Holliston Public Schools versus a school.
Right, it should be
Yeah.
school committee, that's what I was saying before, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that.
We did.
Yeah, also,
Minnie, go ahead.
at the end, instead of having, like, those 5 names only, I would suggest putting in a comma and then saying et cetera.
Well, it says examples include but are not limited to.
Yeah.
Yeah, already, you got
Does
it
it-
really.
does
So
it
that
say
means, yeah.
It's the same thing.
Okay, all
So
right.
that's,
So
what-
I
because you're right,
didn't hear
it
that.
could be
Yeah.
something different.
My other comment is that, do we actually have policy GBEA, which is the staff ethics conflict of interest? I don't know that we have that
Double check on
policy.
that because some of the websites that
So
update, I
sometimes-
thought we double
I
checked.
don't think we do.
I don't have the book on me. We looked all the
Yeah.
GBs.
Yes.
GBE, whatever.
So
We
I'm
can
gonna-
leave the cross-reference, but it just means you have more work to do to add that one.
Before our third reading, maybe
Mm-hmm.
we look at that policy and decide whether it's something you may propose and
Yeah.
I
because if
think
you're-
GBEBC we did do, I'm just not sure about GBE.
GBE.
Yes, we did. We do have these two, but we don't have
KCD
that.
we
have-
did.
But we do have the
GBE.
staff conflict of interest, I just have to double check the
one are we
website. It's
I don't think it's this
GBEA.
one, though. We have to have a different.
No, it's
If we
not.
don't name it that, we should just call it.
GBEBC is there, so we diffed out. We do have a conflict of interest policy. I don't know why it wouldn't be under GBEA.
I don't either.
So we can look into
All right,
it.
well,
let's just look into that, just flag it.
We could also
Yeah.
strike it for now, knowing that when we,
Yeah.
if and when we, then we could go back and put it in.
Right.
Okay with that.
Yeah.
So I have
Minnie?
another question. So in this paragraph, you have become the property of Holliston Public Schools
Yes.
versus Holliston Public School Committee. What's the difference?
So it's not the school committees, it belongs to the school district. It's not to us.
As a school committee, we, like, things can belong to us?
Well,
How-
it seems awkward to
That
say
doesn't,
that.
I mean, technically, you oversee
Yeah.
the budgetary, which would be resources in the schools, but it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
We did,
it
we talked
doesn't.
about
It usually goes to the
Because you
district.
have no way of monitoring it, and
Yeah,
that's why
that's what I
it's
thought.
Right.
school property.
Yeah.
If it's an asset, it's actually possession, it actually belongs to the town of Holliston.
Right.
They are the overseeing thing. Certain items are under the care and custody of the school committee, but it's still a town of Holliston asset that gets acquired.
Yeah.
That may have
It's
to show up on
cleaner.
a depreciation schedule or something of that nature. So there's, accounting records. So if somebody gave us a $1 million sports complex, as a donation, that would show up as a asset of the town of Holliston under the care and custody. Or if somebody gave us a $120 million high school, it would show up as an
How much?
asset. 120 million?
Okay, I'm just checking.
So-
Because I think there's a property that belongs to Holliston School Committee, which I've read before. I always forget to ask.
Well, some of the policies do say it, but it doesn't quite make sense, because how would
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Because it's on if you go to the town of Holliston, it's right there. So it's like, I don't know, Flynn?
Yeah.
I don't know, one of the school properties, it's Holliston School.
You mean one of a building property, like?
Yeah, building, yeah.
You mean the flag school?
Flag school, I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, right, so it's under the care and custody of the school committee, but we don't own it.
Yeah, that's.
And there is no flag school, so it's gone.
demolished. It's a
Yeah.
field now.
But it's
It's a field, yeah.
And the perfect point to that is the Andrews School used to be a school here. And when we stopped using it, the recommendation from administration to the school committee was to turn it back to the town.
Right.
So again, it is town property under our care and custody, has been assigned to us for our care and custody, like a truck for the DPW. And when you're done with it, then it's up to the town on how to dispose of it.
Got it.
Okay,
Thank
other
you.
questions or thoughts?
Yeah, she's struck it.
Thank you for doing
Okay.
that, Susan.
Yeah, so you're going to leave this as a second reading, come back to it on third reading, or vote as second and third reading together?
Well, we could vote for, but do we want to just strike the reference, or do we want to?
I did strike it for
Okay.
now, and then, because I think, this is an area that I told you we want to work on, so we can continue to grow, build.
I would
TV.
prefer to strike it.
Yeah, I think for now, we can add it
Okay,
back, yeah.
so are we prepared to vote on it as is now, or do we want to do we need to do a third reading?
Let's do a third reading and just double check because I think there's one conflict policy that's not referenced, right?
Yeah.
So let's wait, let's do the third reading.
Okay, we can do it next week.
Right? Can we waive the third reading at that time by just?
Well, this is the second reading, so that'll be
Once
the
you
third
go-
reading, and then we
Yeah.
just approve it.
You technically don't have to read it again?
Yeah.
Just add.
If
Right,
there were
we
any
just do
changes,
it,
then you
yeah.
read the changes.
Yep. Okay, all right. So then we'll move on to IJNDD, social media, and this is a revision, yes?
This is the amended, so you don't have to read the whole thing.
Nope,
any
just the
revisions,
amendments,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so
So just the highlighted areas, I guess.
Okay, so under number 1, we changed to improper fraternization with students using social media or other electronic means. A, school employees may not friend or follow current students on social media or allow students to follow them on social media unless an account is set up by the employee for the sole purpose of communicating with the class and/or families. B,
I think you just have to go down to E, because that's the change.
okay, so the highlighted is not the change, sorry.
That's okay.
E, staff may not put photos or videos of students on their personal social media accounts. That is it.
But it is, can you scroll, sorry, I'm sorry to be so close to you too. We did, it was highlighted because we had a whole discussion about, that first section said something about it being completely prohibited to have a social media account. And we were trying to say, no, there are situations where a teacher.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I think that's why we changed A.
Yeah.
That was an A.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know why the gray showing there, 'cause I don't know who's
I know,
on
it's
there.
sort of
It's
like
somebody's on it or
light
something,
gray on
but
mine, but,
I don't know what the gray is. Oh, because that's, you know what, that's because there's a comment over to the right, Stacy, that you have, so it looks like it's
okay.
highlighted
Why is
just
that?
because there was a
Okay,
comment
addressing a
associated with
Because
it.
my comment was,
That's what that's about.
Yeah.
okay.
and by the way, I personally need to move back to like the book version because the online is throwing me off because
It's hard.
it's not matching and jiving. And I can't see that far to read.
So this
I'm
was.
not sure I understand,
Which
like,
part?
the number 2, number 3, like, what's the orientation
back
reminders
to-
will give
yeah.
special emphasis to inappropriateness of posting items with sexual, I don't know what that means.
So I think, is it suggesting in the first paragraph that the superintendent and the principals will do annual reminders to staff? And in that orientation program, they're going to go over what is like an inappropriate posted item regarding sexual content or inappropriate of, and yeah, it's a little awkward.
It is
Some
awkward, the language is
examples from
awkward,
other
like, I'd rather it
districts.
just say, should not post items with sexual content, like, be just very direct, instead of saying the inappropriateness
What
of
is
it.
that? I gone to see.
Number 2 and number 3.
Well, I think it,
It's like agenda items in the
instead
Yeah.
discussion.
of should not, it's more like we're going to help define what is inappropriate.
Okay,
Because sometimes it requires clarification, so they need to
okay.
be oriented about it. And it is awkward wording, but that's.
It is,
it's
all
not-
right.
It's not just saying you should not do it, it's how do we make sure you understand.
It's a
what that is.
subjective component as
Yes.
well.
Okay.
right, you know.
So number 2 needs a period at the end of it, and so does number 3,
And I just want
and
to
number 4.
make sure,
All of them, actually.
you added E in. What was the thought behind E? Was there a policy that you were modeling after?
Nope, it was just, we thought that needed to be on there.
Okay. What about this scenario? You have a athletic Twitter account, and you tag, your personal account tags something, or you have a team account, and you like it, and it would somehow then be reposted in your own account. That's not, you're not intentionally posting it on your account, but by being the account holder on multiple accounts within one form of social media, it could repost on it. Do you think that that's a violation of that? It's just
I guess I
the
don't
feed,
like,
right?
could it?
It's a decision though, isn't it, to post in multiple places? You don't have to connect your Facebook to your Instagram.
And I have 2 Facebook accounts because I had one for campaigning for this, and nothing gets posted in both.
Okay.
I see what you're saying, Don, but that's a responsibility issue. Like, it may happen, like there's all these default settings that I always mess up, but I believe you can undo those. They don't have to stay that way. It's not, because I also have more than one Facebook account, but they don't cross-post unless you want to.
Okay.
So the way it's worded, that it would be a separate account, so that would not be their personal account, it would be it is associated with them personally, but it's for the purpose of, so I would think their personal account is
So I think it's okay, like, are you saying like Coach Raffi has a lacrosse page, but also her personal, she tagged herself in the picture, so
It shows up on
your
Stacy
personal
Raffi,
account.
but it shows,
And she has 6 kids in the picture with her.
but she didn't post it.
Right.
It just shows up on her feed, it's not a post from her.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
I see what you mean.
students shouldn't be associated with that, right? I mean, so, yeah, no, this is the problem with
that's
it.
technology.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to keep up with all these.
We can put the language in for that, like we can say.
Just ban it. Just say no.
Don't do
No.
that.
It's hard, it's very hard.
That's simple. It's just a
Because you know what, I mean, even students tag their teachers, right?
Nancy.
So, I mean, if I'm a teacher, my student actually might tag me and it'll show up on my feed.
Yeah.
I would not even know that I've been tagged somewhere and just shows up.
But to that point, Minnie, that goes back to where students shouldn't be following their teachers on their
That's
personal
a
accounts.
big problem we've run into, is that it
Yeah.
gets very gray, and we've had situations where staff members unintentionally have allowed students to follow them, and then occasionally, because it's their personal account, there are things that we don't want our students
Right.
seeing.
You don't have to follow them. So you don't have to be friends. If you can just tag, because on Facebook, you
Right,
can
but
tag
if it's their
everybody.
personal account, the students should not be allowed to,
I mean,
they shouldn't be associated with their personal account, only the account that's created for.
No,
For, like,
but
the
but you
team
can
account.
always tag. So all students will not know. So I can actually find you, your personal account, and tag you, and it will show up.
And we can't get around that.
It depends on her
We're trying to
settings, yeah.
control what the staff members do, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, if a student
Right.
tags a teacher,
That's a different.
that's different,
That's
and that's
different.
not the
That's-
teacher's
Yes.
That's
fault.
not
This is
Yeah,
for.
that's out of our control.
Yes, that's
Exactly.
right.
You
Yeah,
can
that
only
is
do so
some-
much.
Yeah,
Could we
that's-
say staff may not intentionally?
I was going to say, should we say not
Okay,
intentionally?
that's
yeah,
fine,
that is
yes.
probably what it would.
Just because. God
Right, we
knows.
don't want to overly get
Yeah.
a staff member
Right,
picking
'cause-
the fall for something that they
Right, they
Yeah.
didn't do it on
that's what we're
purpose.
doing
That's a
with
good
the
point,
Facebook.
Dawn. It's definitely not intentionally.
Yeah, I think that was
Post.
great. Yeah, that
That's good.
Who
Not
knows
intentionally
how
post
Twitter will
photos.
change in the next
We can't foresee.
few months.
No idea.
Okay, so we're saying E is staff may not intentionally post photos of videos
Or videos.
or videos of students on their personal social media accounts. Yes, okay. So this is a revision, right? So we can just vote for it
It's
as it
just
is?
right, yes.
All right, are we good? So I'd entertain a motion to vote for, to amend policy IJNDD, social media, as amended. Moved by Amanda, seconded by Catherine. All in favor?
Yep.
Great. All right, check. All right. We will now move on to central office administrators' updates. We're going to start with Dr. Kuska's Corner. Just trying it out. I'm just trying it out.
You took most of my.
No, I
updates, so that's
got
okay.
a head shake on that one.
So as you mentioned, I'm almost done with the SOI. We'll be submitting
Yep.
it tomorrow, which is,
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder on
that's
that one.
quite all right, because I don't like being last minute, but we were waiting for some of the certification to come through, so it'll be finalized. It's almost done and will be submitted maybe tonight, definitely tomorrow.
Okay.
And then I attended Miller Transition Night last night. It was really nice to see, because it was the first time for me to be able to be in a live meeting with all of our families in that type of a setting. And they did, Ms. Linares and Mr. Kime did a great job, and the families were excited to be there, so that was nice to see. I also, as you mentioned earlier, the Historical Society event, I just happened to be on my visit to Miller yesterday. I scheduled them regularly, and it just happened to fall yesterday, so Mr. Kime and I went over. and I saw the students making candles and attending class, and what else?
Did you get a Johnny cake?
I didn't, but I can't eat them anyhow.
Oh,
so.
yeah, right, you're right, they're not
I did see the kids
gluten-free.
making the Johnny cakes, so it was great. And we have something similar, and my kids did a very similar thing. So I actually did the field trip when my son was in school, but that was nice to see kids getting back to normalcy, right? This is what we want. And what else? Oh, the next week is a really important date, so I will be sending out a reminder in my end of the week update tomorrow. We have our Cinco de Mayo strategic plan update, and we will have a presentation that I will be helping to develop, but I am hoping to hand it off and let my team present for a change, and I'm going to sit back and let them do the work.
I thought you were going to remind us about the 4th. May the 4th be with you.
I thought I was going to do the
It's
maple.
called Strategic
For the
Planning
maple.
Update and Jamboree.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
Yes, may the 4th be with you.
You've done a lot of Girl Scouts.
What's the event now?
No.
Wasn't there something that was happening on the 4th?
Oh.
Fun names.
Oh, is it our budget subcommittee? Is that what
Yeah, that's it. It's the budget subcommittee
Yeah,
meeting.
that's it.
It's very exciting. May the 4th be with you. Okay. Anything else?
Oh, no, I think that's it, because I had some of the Teen Truth and Leadership Summit. That'll be in my end of the week update, so
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
I can't stop thinking about that. The Team Troop. Okay, we're going to move on to Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. It's Ms. Menard's minute. I'm just trying it on. Just trying it on.
It's exciting, okay. We had a PD council meeting today, which was very successful. Just to remind you guys, it's a joint teacher administrative council, and we had a lot of great suggestions. Next meeting, we're working on analyzing PD feedback together, looking at the DESE requirements for PDPs and really making sure that our professional development meets that. Looking at the strategic plan and making sure all our professional development aligns to these strategic initiatives. And also, we're going to be reaching out to all paraprofessionals and surveying them, since we added the professional development to them, of what their needs are, and then planning accordingly. So we have a lot on our plate to finish off the year.
Do you think that you'll have a calendar for that before the end of this school year?
We are certainly working on it right now.
I mean, is that the plan? I just didn't know for the PD.
We will have as much information, and we'll have a preliminary schedule. That is our goal, that we will be able to say, these are the topics that we're going to be rolling out district-wide, and then the schools, where our hope is that the principals will say the topics that they're, again, subject to.
Yeah, sure.
But we're going to try to get that in people's hands before the school year is out, so that we see the sustainability over time. And then it's going to eventually turn into like a multi-year plan.
Yes, and that's how we really want people to know ahead of time, not at the last minute. So it'd be really nice to have that all spelled out for everybody so they know what's coming up.
Because now we have 12 hours with our paraprofessional,
Correct.
which is new in the contract, which we're thrilled that we now have time that we can work with the teachers and them, or work with them on specific topics. And then we also have, the teachers have about 26 hours of
Yes.
PD throughout the year.
Okay. Questions? Okay, none. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Menard. And Mr. Boudet for Boudet's briefing.
Pass.
No, you're not allowed to pass.
Just a couple quick updates. The Norfolk Aggie numbers are final now. They've come in.
Okay.
Again, we had 9 students apply for it. 1 self-selected out before the acceptance was done. The other 8 were accepted, and they all accepted. So we have, and again, we had budgeted for all 9, so we do have a $24,000, $572 cut we'll be able to make to the budget as we go through the process. I know that I've reached out to my Norfolk County peers just to see if I can, we did this one other time, it's probably about 8 or 10 years ago, and Medfield, we engaged with Medfield because their superintendent was somebody who I knew, and he laid into the county, so we'll see what happens. Accepting 8 from a town of our size is ridiculous.
Well, in fairness, it's good for students. It's just, we would want to make sure that because we do pay a higher rate, we would hope that that's not the reason why they're accepting.
Right.
Right, that's
We
why
wanna make
I'm
sure
just
it's for the
wondering
right
whether that
reason.
was something that was unique to Holliston, or were there other districts around us where they accepted more students this year?
And we
Because
can find
there is a
both.
We're going to
financial
work on
crunch
that.
that's
We're going
happening,
to work
so
on
I'm
that.
just
That's,
curious.
And that's just it, we want our students to have opportunities,
Sure.
but not, we shouldn't be, we would hope they're not giving them a priority because it's additional funding, that would be.
Right, we're out of district, so we pay more. Catherine, did you have a question?
I just didn't really understand what you just said about reaching out to Medfield. What does it have to do with?
Medfield's in Norfolk County, so the last time that we had a situation such as this, it turns out Medfield had a number of students that got rejected, and there's 6 or 7 Holliston students got accepted. And so Medfield was not happy that these students got rejected and ours were accepted.
And what's the average for every town? Like,
More money.
But, well, they're.
It's not about average for every
What's
town.
the difference in rates?
Right, that's what I'm
It's about the rate difference, and it's a few $1,000s, but if it's a few thousand for, 8 of our students, and
Yeah.
6 of, 6 of Hopkinton's, and 4 up in Ashland, and 10 in Framingham, we're all on the same bus together, so that's why, and Natick, so there's one bus that does those 5 towns. So it adds up quickly, so.
So the concern is that they're accepting more of Holliston students because we pay them more.
Well, that's a question.
On a per pupil basis.
That's a question because, in fairness, if you are in district, you should be getting priority. Although we want our students to get there, we want to make sure that it's been done fairly for the other districts and we're not being prioritized for the wrong reason. That's really what it comes down to.
Okay.
It's just atypical. Our average is three students is, every year.
3 students because 3 apply, or only 3 get in?
Usually we have like 5 or 6 applications, and 3 usually get in.
go, yeah.
And usually
So we
the
had no
highest
rejections
4.
either, so that's odd too. We had a higher number that applied and all of them were accepted.
It just begs
So-
some questions.
Yeah.
But kudos to the kids. It's
Right.
good news for them.
Yeah.
It's just-
Happy for the kids.
we
Yes,
wanna make
happy
sure
for the
it's-
kids. We want them to
we wanna make sure
be
it's a
happy to
fair-
be where
Have
they
the
want to be.
opportunities that they want to
Yeah.
have,
That's all. So, I
It's
know.
just helping the Listevnik vocational school up on Highland Street.
Oh,
So,
great. Yes, that's our long-term plan. Okay.
Just a quick update on a couple of field issues. The backstop was replaced last week, or not replaced, but repaired last week at the high school. That I actually was out there looking at it 2 days ago. It looks great.
Where's the
And-
backstop? To the baseball field?
Baseball field, yes.
Okay, sorry, I just,
And the grass is actually now growing for the area where the trenches were that the DPW did
yeah.
work on. It looks great out there. We're in the middle right now of doing the final closeout for the committee and field project. I've got the vendor to agree to compensate us for us having to move the remaining turf, us having to get a container, us having to move it into that container. So we'll get a little bit of reduction from that piece. And we also have to buy one more piece of equipment, a groomer for the field. But that's all in the process. And then I just have a quick school choice update. It's kind of a 2-step process with school choice, or at least this update. We can't do much until we have the kindergarten registration numbers. This is literally hot off the presses. Right now, we have 169 students who have registered for kindergarten. There's 22 students who have not registered who are on the census. That doesn't mean that they're even in town, though. It's, on the census doesn't mean you're still here.
Last year, or 2020 census?
2021 census. The 22 census is not out yet, so we look for 4-year-olds, basically. So of that 22, 5 of them have siblings in district, so we expect those 5 to be here. The other ones, again, we sent out letters. It's a normal process that we do. It comes out of Placentino. When I mean we, it's not me, it's them at Placentino, to give full credit. And so they've sent out letters, and, sometimes we get letters back as, return to sender type thing. Or, people will tell us if it gets forwarded to them, they no longer live in town. So we're going through that process.
so, sorry, can I just ask a question? Is that like a normal number? Is that a higher number around this time?
It's in the
would you
right
say?
range.
Okay.
It's in the right range. And we're doing this number as late as possible because there's a number of, situations that we really have to react in a very accurate way for, such as we've had 45 requests for French immersion, not 46. So we're going to have to make a decision on on whether or not we offer a school choice seat for that 46th seat, or we reserve it for a Holliston family. If we reserve it for a Holliston family and nobody comes, we got an empty seat. So these are things that you'll hear from me next week. So, so again, we're looking at a class size right now, giving a buffer of about 10 students for move-ins. We're looking at about 200 students right now in our kindergarten class, which is down significantly from last year, which is 228 or something like that. So, school choice applications are rich with students. We had a nice bump back this year. The number we're looking at right now, there's 19 applications for kindergarten, which is a little higher than normal. 2 in first, 2 in second, 4 in third, 2 in fourth, 4 in fifth, 6 in sixth, 1 in seventh, 1 in eighth, 12 in ninth. Again, big bump there. 12 in ninth, 4 in 10th, 3 in 11th, 3 in 12th. So
what's the overall number?
a bigger number that I didn't bother putting together.
Okay.
Or it might be at the bottom of the page. Look, it's the bottom of the page. How about that?
Yep.
It is 63 right now.
Oh.
So that's the first application period. So we cut off here.
Yeah.
So these people will be, once we vote on seats, or once you all vote on seats, will be, at that point, we then add people to the bottom of the waiting list. So.
Okay. Don't you have a question?
I did. When you say the first part, like we would open it back up if we didn't have...
Well, it's still open.
It's
still open. It's just that you
until-
draw a line at some point to then do your lottery from that point. So we're at that point where we now have our first tranche of students, and we'll go from there.
Okay. And then traditionally, how many, when we say yes, how many actually? Do we get 50%, 20%? I think we've talked about this once
Yes.
before, where people will often apply school choice for Ashland, Medway, and Holliston.
Right.
But what's our percentage? once we
Kindergarten is a
accept?
high percentage, and even when it's, so we open up, pick your number, we open up 5 seats. I've got 19 students. We're going to fill the 5 seats.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? As well as we also have, in that group, we have 7 siblings in that group.
Right.
We're going to
We'd like
fill,
to
we're
try
going to
to
fill those,
we'd
we're
like
also
to
going to
keep the-
fill those seats, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying. So that's a real number. The rest of elementary, it's probably on the order of 60 to 70%. Middle school drops way down to more like 30 to 40%. High school's more like 25 to 30%. As you go up, it really drops down pretty quickly. A lot of parents shop in high school or threaten in high school, I'm not going to lie. They
Feel like I'm sending you out of district.
Exactly, and so that's common, and you get some weird towns too from time to time, so, that is not coming.
Right.
But again, I will say that, from an enrollment perspective, our enrollment, as we've had this low number of enrollment for a number of years, high school enrollment's down a little bit, so we may have a little extra room there this year as well, and we do have a number we have to make with regards to the turnover. We talked about that earlier in the budget process,
Right.
about $160,000 of revenue that just went out the door from last year in graduates. So
Right.
we'll never make it all back in 1 year, but that's part of my risk number.
Right.
Keith, when do we vote and see the recommendations on numbers for each?
You will see it for next week.
For next week?
Yes, I'll have it
So
probably
that's
on
when our
Monday.
vote is.
I'll be sending it out probably and put it in the packet on Monday.
Okay, so we can look at it a couple days.
I've spoken to the principals once already. I'm hoping to wrap that up tomorrow. So.
Thank you.
Yes, Minnie?
Are we expecting to see a larger kindergarten than last year?
No.
It doesn't appear that way, but certainly we wouldn't open up, we able to open 19 seats. I also would worry about filling too many seats, because we try to estimate for the summer, but it is still unpredictable. Like, we never predicted the 220-something. I mean,
Correct, and that grade started large.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That grade started, it was like 218 or whatever, like around this time of year, or maybe even a little higher. It may have been 220 at this time of year, which is why, Dr. Kuska came forward and requested that you add a kindergarten teacher last year because of that initial, group.
Correct.
Then during the summer, we ended up with a number of additional students as well. So that's where it pushed us to a number that, I don't say we're not happy with, but it's just getting tight. So.
Okay.
And our preschool registration, has that been completed? Do we have numbers on preschool, or will we have numbers next week on preschool?
We don't do school choice or preschool, so that's not part of it. I do believe we did have a lottery for the Montessori preschool. I can double check on that. I'll have something on
Yes,
preschool.
but next week we could get you probably.
Yeah, the preschool is fairly consistent. I mean, our class sizes can't be any larger by law than 15.
15 because we have 8 pairs and then.
Yeah, so exactly. We follow regulations there, so that's,
It's different.
Right.
we don't have a choice. So I'm done.
That's it?
I had one more question.
Okay, apparently Dawn's not done with me. So.
I don't know if that was brief enough, but go ahead.
You brought up the groomer for the turf field. Is that maintenance we take care of with a groomer each year instead of bringing an
This is
outside
in
company?
between. This is a lighter. It's a lighter service than we do with the outside contractor who comes in and does a big fluff, a big clean, a repair, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the bigger one. That's the $5,000 one.
Okay.
The groomer is something that we would do once a month, twice a month. If the field was really used, maybe even once a week. It's just to make sure the blades are all going in the same direction. If you pick up a little bit of the trash that may be in between the blades, things of that nature.
And then it just
we run it
prolongs
behind
the life of
Kubota.
it?
Right, sorry.
Does it just prolong the life of the?
It extends the life.
Extends
Yeah,
the life,
it extends the life. I mean,
Okay.
and again, it really helped us when we probably, whatever it was, about 6 or 7 years ago, we started having the contractor come in. They came in they did it for the first 5 years as part of the contract to provide the service. After that, we had a couple of years where we didn't do it. We noticed the field really heading downhill quickly, and so we then went back out and paid for it ourselves at that point. And it really helped. I mean, we got a lot more life out of the field than we ever should have. So.
Right.
That's true.
Is it under warranty for a certain period of time for rips and tears and so on?
Yes, is it 3 or 5 years? I can't remember off the top of my head, but yes, there is a piece that they will come in and do repairs on. Yes.
Okay, so we'll walk it like once a year and call them out to
Well, they'll be coming to do the fluffing, so they will notice that.
See
We don't
that
get it, and it's
twice
not
a
an
year.
extra charge, so.
Right.
Thanks.
And we have the extra sections hidden away, not inconspicuously.
And we have staff that know how to use the groomer and service the groomer and all that.
It is a thing
I'm
you
just-
drag behind you.
Okay,
and
drag
so
behind the
if you
people.
can-
I'm just-
If you could do this
Okay.
and use pedals,
All
you're
right,
good.
perfect. Just checking. Okay. Is that it? Are we sure?
That's it, I'm done.
I think I might have other questions, but I'll let it go with that. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Boudet. All right, we're going to move on to reports from the subcommittees. Anything for community? We're not doing a newsletter till next time,
We
right?
will do a newsletter next week, so
We're going to do it next week, or we're going to do it end of May? No?
I think we should do it next week
Okay.
in advance of town meeting.
That makes sense.
So we'll try and get something out that Friday before town meeting, which is
Okay.
the following week. And then I would recommend that we also do one at the end of May or
It's really it's like the 19th is our second meeting in May.
ooh.
Yeah, it's the very next meeting.
Okay.
So then
We'll
I
talk
guess
about
Jen-
it.
We'll talk about it, okay. Policy, we just did, yay.
I've never really understood why it's on the agenda twice.
Well, sometimes we don't have actual policies to do.
It's just a subcommittee update,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
an
Every
update.
week it's on there twice.
Because we're doing a lot of policies lately,
Yep.
that's why. Usually it's just, we have a meeting set for.
Right, that's all I'm asking. Do you have a meeting set for?
We're working on it.
Okay. Budget, we have a meeting set for May 4th, be with you, at 8:30, yes, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. And we just had a budget meeting this week, which we'll talk about budget when we get to budget. And we
Yep.
also just barely started talking about school start times and any budget implications.
And superintendent's evaluation.
We almost have a date. We're
Almost
close.
have a
I'm
date.
just not ready to share it yet.
Okey doke. All right, we'll move on to,
But with that being said, everybody.
yeah, get yours in, yes.
Get yours in, please.
Yeah, if you haven't already done it, please get your evaluation in so that Stacy can consolidate. Or, sorry, the subcommittee can consolidate it. Okay, so we're going to move on to old business and review the family formative survey results. Dr. Kuska, I'm going to let you take it from here. Are we going to put that up on the screen? or-
I wasn't going to because I had already sent the graphs out to families, but I did share with you, we were trying to disaggregate because there were questions around
Yeah.
the survey data, and so I sent out 4 versions.
That was just today, and I don't know if you guys had a
Just
chance
today,
to look
because
at
I
it.
just got it the other day. Julie Marshall, our data specialist, had taken it and sorted it by school, because sometimes it's hard to figure out where any concerns are coming from, and it can be misleading. So we went through and sorted it that way, and I honestly haven't had a chance to really digest it all. I don't know if you want me to put them up individually, I could do that, but is that what you'd like to do? Okay, so.
This is really a great, visual, because I'm a visual
Visually, yeah,
person.
yeah.
This is real, she did a great job.
So I do need to find that, because I just emailed it to you, and I don't
You
have
did
it in
just
the
email it to
folder.
me.
Let me just
It
find
wasn't
Yeah, I
put in the
don't see it in
folder.
the folder.
It was,
but we can-
yeah.
Because I got it
It's in my email,
and
but
didn't
I'll
see
look
it right
through
away, but I
Mm-hmm.
can get that up in a second. So
I just printed
get your
this before I
questions
came over.
together, and I will pull it up in
Okay.
a second.
123.
Got it. Okay, I'm going to start with, oh, that's the high school. Do you want me to start with the high school and go backwards? Does it matter?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever.
We'll do it backwards this time. We always go one way.
That's true. Good point.
Okay, so we have the feedback from both segregated by Holliston High School, and then on the right side, she put what the whole district count was. So we had 179 people comment that their students in the district got 8 to 9 hours sleep, but 26 of those were high school students. And then there's questions about whether they have enough sleep. Again, we had a very, overall, what it's telling me is we had a very small number of high school
Right.
respondents.
Not a lot of people responded to that. Yeah.
So it doesn't tell us if there's any real concerns related to high school as far as the impact. So again, it's I don't want to go through each thing. I'd rather kind of answer questions, and if that would be helpful.
Can you remind me, I know this went to parents, did it go to high school students directly?
It
too?
did not. It was
did
strictly
not. It was
families,
parents.
yes.
Okay.
And it wasn't specific to just start times. It's really specific to feedback about how our students are doing.
Right.
But sleep and wellness and all of that was taken into consideration.
It is pretty stark to look at the difference between Placentino and Miller in terms of, do you feel like your child is getting enough sleep? Or do you feel like this is your child's optimal amount of sleep?
And what was interesting, though, speaking of Miller, because we did have 86 respondents of that, 86 of the Miller family respondents said that their students are getting 8 to 9 hours. But then if you look 2 down from that, on average, what time does your child go to bed on school nights? 54 of them said 8:30 to 9. Is it 52? These numbers are really small, sorry. I got to enlarge it. 52 said 8 to 8:30, and then some 9 to 9:30, 7:30 to 8. So I don't know, when my kids were that age, I feel like they were going to bed by 8 p.m. So if they went to bed, for example, at 8 p.m., I'm not telling people what time to do, but I'm just saying, if you went to bed at 8 p.m. and get up at 6 p.m., which I would think would be enough time to get ready for school, if they get up, what time they leave us, 6:30?
6:50, I think is the
6:40.
6:40, 6:50.
So, maybe a little
Somewhere around.
earlier, but you're getting about 10 hours sleep if you, so
I think a lot of it is activities are a lot different
I
from like
totally
when I was a
understand
kid.
that. I totally understand.
Like I'm looking at if your child does after school activities,
Yeah,
what kind of those activities,
I saw
and a
that.
lot are like between 7 and 9.
Well, I'm actually thinking when my kids did a ton of activities. They had 3, we were doing softball, baseball, t-ball. We didn't get home, so I can relate to that as a parent, but
Well, I think there's a couple of things here. One is that the people who don't feel as though their child's getting enough sleep, we don't know that they're the same people that said that their
Correct.
kid's going between 8:30 and 9. So you can't make that.
you don't know
That's
what
a false
No, it's
equivalency.
true.
You can't say that. But also, as soon as you're 10 years old, you're on the under 12 team, and the under 12 kids practice later. So unless we're suggesting that they should quit their sports, they can't help what time they get home. So if a sport gets over at 8 o'clock, and they do, and then the kid comes home, they're not going to fall asleep immediately. And I think that becomes a problem, not in 3rd grade, because usually they're not 10 till 4th grade, but 4th and 5th graders are getting the later times for their sports and for their activities that, many of them are not in Holliston. So and many of them are in Holliston, but parents are the volunteer coaches, and they're the ones who we have to wait for to have practice. So I do think that there's a certain amount of this, ignoring the false equivalency, there's a certain amount of this that you just we can't extrapolate too far what we think is probably happening.
And I don't disagree with you. I'm just thinking back to putting my parent hat on, and I could not have handled as a parent if my kids were coming home that late, because I was also a teacher coming home to grade papers, and in dinner, I have no idea how I would have managed raising 3 kids doing that. So that's concerning to me, and I don't know what the answer is, but maybe it's something that on
It's a
larger-
national problem.
Yes. Yeah.
Race to nowhere,
Yeah.
activities for days.
Right, but I am concerned if our students in this age population are getting the later times, but we can't control them, but maybe we could somehow have a community outreach for this.
Right.
So how many kids do we have today at San Placentino?
About 700, is it just under 700? We're in I think we're
If we-
high sixes, I believe it is at Miller, and is it over 700, I think, this year at Pleasanton?
Placentino, not including preschool,
No.
620.
No, I thought it was more than that. I probably have it backwards then.
Miller's at 619.
Oh, where did we get 700 from?
So, yeah, is there a decrease? Because they used,
No, I thought
I
you were.
swear they
Used to be
were,
up to 700.
yeah. I'm not, like, you don't have to, I'm not arguing the number, but I'm pretty sure we had 7-something at one point.
I mean, the Miller to Placentino is a stark contrast, right? 61% of the Miller families, or 61% that filled this out said they were not getting enough sleep. And looking at Placentino, do you feel that this is your child's optimal amount of sleep? You have 126 out of, what is that, 100?
I think that's the number of responses versus percentage.
Yeah.
Still, the percentage that said yes, they're getting enough sleep is substantially higher.
And how often does your child seem sleepy or sleep deprived during the school week? Placentino was extremely low for every school day, and the order was almost never is the highest vote getter, then sometimes often every school day. And Miller is opposite for that. The highest number of respondents said every school day, second often.
It's also interesting to note that on the Placentino chart, there's 106 kids going to bed between 8:30 and 9, 115 between 8 and 8:30. Like, they're still going to bed late, you know, that's,
Yeah.
I guess it's just bedtime.
Well, it's hard to have your kids have staggered bedtimes.
Right.
If they're 2 years apart.
Right, because one will keep the other up.
Yeah, if your kids, you know.
And they'll also wake up together.
Especially if
They
share
also
a
wake up
bedroom.
together.
Yeah.
Especially if they're- yeah.
I'm just surprised by some of them that say, you know, like kids are going to bed at, 9 or like past that. When my kids were in Placentino and Miller. I mean, like my, middle school kid, I don't let stay up past 9:30, so.
And it's showing us changing times that I was not aware of either, so.
Yeah. I'm not surprised by that. I mean, we have families that don't come home from work until 6:30 or 7, and bringing 2 or 3 kids home and then getting dinner started, sitting down with them, making sure you're ready for the next day. It doesn't surprise me that they're going to bed at 9 o'clock.
I mean, if you are on the roads, on Route 9 from Boston, at 5:30, it's jammed.
Where, I'm sorry, what was it? If you were-
So Boston, if you have to come to Holliston, generally...
Oh, the route's coming back,
The route's
yeah.
coming back, whether you take 27 or whether you...
Very true.
Even if you're coming from the other side, it's jammed at
Oh, yeah.
5:30 to 6.
Well, that's the other piece that's impacting.
Right, and then, so you're arriving by 6:30, you have to pick up the kids from daycare at 6, arriving. And if they have an activity after 6, which actually younger kids do, believe it or not, they still have it. And they're not even reaching home by 7.
Like
7.
second graders?
Yeah. I have
Having something after 6?
I have kindergartners coming in at 6.
Wow.
Parents are doctors. They are picking up the child at 6 o'clock, bringing her to me at 6. The child is there till 7, like 6:45. And I'm talking about kids who are 5, 4. They have younger kids in the car. The parents are waiting. So I tend to send them home by 6:30, maybe 6:40 at the most. They don't reach home by 7. And I'm talking about 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. Forget about the older ones. So that's a reality. They can't come in earlier. Right. And the school start times also has affected the way after school works. So there are so many, say the martial art places in many of the Wayland in and around, they don't even open up earlier anymore. They don't have the slot. The kids are not out of school. So they don't even come home before 3:34. So then every child is doing activity late. So
it's a community/societal issue that
yeah.
I don't know that we have
Earlier,
solutions
even
for.
2 years ago, the kids were home by 2:33 at the most. So I used to have a 3:30 slot which was packed. Now I don't have a single child coming in, not one.
But I guess if the parents aren't home till 6:30, I don't know how.
No, I mean, they would have au pairs bringing the children in. I mean, they have people, or they will carpool.
Right, but I'm just thinking if they're going to need daycare until 6:30,
Yeah, so there's some kids, I'm just telling that, you know, the parents who work late, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There are some kids like that, but then there are kids, because of the late school that gets released for even younger kids, they don't come. I don't have a slot between 3:30 and 4:30 anymore, 4 o'clock.
And what age group is that? I'm
I would,
confused.
I don't even take 3-year-olds anymore, but I would say 4 to about
Right, but
8.
those times really haven't changed, like
No, they
Placentino
have.
time. But
The
I'm just saying
elementary-
Placentino times here have not changed.
Yeah, so getting out later. I'm just talking about in general
Okay.
that there is just not a community. There have been many
Yeah,
other changes.
sure.
So I'm just saying that it's a staggered effect.
Yeah.
So you have kids who come in late at home. They can't get to bed because they are so staggered and the activities start late. So, I mean, that's what you're looking at. I know when my kids were younger, I mean, they did all activities were done by 5 o'clock.
Right.
We were home, right? So I think that's the change I see today.
Do we have any similar data? And I know when you were working on this for 1 or 2 years before spring of 2019, was there any similar surveys where families in Miller and Adams and high school and Placentino were asked questions like, do you feel that your child's getting the optimal amount of sleep? Do we have anything to compare about what our Miller families were saying when it was a different time? Do we have that?
Maybe the stress survey?
The stress survey
stress
was in
survey, but that was-
2016.
Yeah.
We did do some other surveys where we asked questions like, you know, what about activities and things like that were on the surveys. They're on the website.
I feel like there may have been, at least at the middle school and high school level, asking about, are you getting enough sleep? But did we ask families in Miller how they were feeling when it was the 8-10?
2016 would be.
I just would like to compare it. I know it's a different data set, it's different kids, different families, but I'd like to see the percentages, right?
Yeah, it's 6 years ago now. So.
Yeah, no. That would be middle school for me.
Do we still have a start time section on
We
our-
do. It's on our school committee site.
I'd be interested to see if there were positive changes from that previous data with the RAMs and the high school students.
Right,
If
and
they weren't getting enough sleep before, and they are getting enough sleep now.
Well, I think what's tough is that, you know, right now we did this survey, in April? This is really like the first year, really a first full year of the implementation. So I feel like we didn't even get through a full year yet to make that.
We did it in February, right after.
Yeah, so
And
we
it
were
was
like.
it was a year and a half because of.
Right, but the kids were
COVID
not,
year,
it was a
right.
COVID year. The kids were not here every day. They were, you know what I mean? It was not.
I agree. I'm just saying this was the second year, and that's why we waited. Yeah.
So
The third graders were.
And the Montessori fourth graders.
Okay, but.
The links on our website are broken, unfortunately. I just clicked on Superintendent's Task Force on Student Stress. I just went to the start time section.
Yeah.
So the Superintendent's Task Force on Student Stress, that link is broken, and the survey link right below it that indicated that most middle school students and the vast majority of high school students reported not getting enough sleep, which
Yeah.
tells me we didn't survey Miller.
Okay, but it would still be helpful to see.
Yeah,
there's been
but the
a-
links are
a
broken.
Percentage of improvement.
So we're going to have to fix
Right.
that.
Well,
It's such a small number at high school. You know what I mean? It's hard because the numbers are so inconsistent.
we don't have, it's not a good
Middle
representation.
school students,
I think, the whole thing.
55%, and the vast majority,
Although
74%.
We have
of high
about
school students
79 who
reported
responded at Adams.
Well, that's kind of.
Yeah,
a little
but
bit
we had like, when we did our other surveys, we got like 900 surveys filled out, so.
There
So
was
sample.
a room in the survey for comments.
Yes.
Is there any?
That was computed, I think. by
Yeah, I
someone
think I
else
shared
said.
that.
Yeah.
The comments a while back.
The
Yeah,
comments.
I wish I
But
got
it's
my-
really hard to. It's hard to really.
Well, I went through and coded them
Did you code it?
qualitatively.
Did you use one of the electronic coding devices?
I did. I put it into. I did put it into Atlas.
To what? What did you put into?
I forgot about Atlas.
Oh.
I can't show it to you because it's the wrong computer and it's not a web-based platform. For the high school, the the overwhelming response for what's the biggest challenge, or, sorry, what is, the question's not at the top. Oh, yeah. What do you see as being the most challenging part of this school year? It was the COVID protocols and COVID fear.
Yeah.
Wait, what are you looking at?
I coded
The responses.
So this is this, but then Catherine coded these using some data analyzing software.
That's so cool.
So it is pretty cool. So overwhelmingly, it was about COVID protocols. Some of it was about engagement. I think it was COVID protocols, COVID fear, COVID engagement was a
Connectedness or
concern.
something? Okay.
So it was a blanket code. So part of it was about motivation. Part of it was about, one of them actually said emotional engagement.
Yeah.
That was the person's response, not my code.
Okay.
So there was, so I coded it CVD PRTCL, so that's my code for COVID protocol, and it's like, I didn't count them, unfortunately. I don't have a pie chart for you, but it is overwhelmingly COVID protocols in the high school.
And I think that's what I worry about. The challenge is how do we still can't separate COVID out from all of this.
Yeah.
Even though, yes, we definitely have some overarching concerns, but it's the COVID situation is still present.
Yeah.
Looming.
Keep going.
Yeah, keep going. I want to hear more.
So,
What else you got?
so there's also pieces about the most positive, and honestly, I think like some of that is just about going through and reading it and seeing the positivity is less code friendly because there's so many different ones. So I encourage you to go through and read those because there's a bunch of them. Let me see.
Do we have access to this?
Yeah.
I shared them a while
Yeah.
back.
It was many pages.
It was
I
an
read all of
Excel
them.
sheet.
Yeah.
It's in the Excel that says
Okay,
February.
yeah.
No, I'm saying February 2022 HPS Family Formative Implementation. It's an Excel that was shared with us.
Okay,
And
I just don't
it's-
remember that.
Yeah, you have it, right? So I didn't
Yeah, you
think I had
did.
to share it.
No, we haven't.
The whole.
No, we got it again. From Meredith Baker. I can share this one.
But the one I gave you is not, it's not redacted. If it's a very few, but there's a couple of comments that we just would want to not
I do, exactly.
Catherine,
give any
keep going.
underlying.
I was just going to say for Miller, it is overwhelmingly school start times. And I could actually count how many people wrote COVID because it's countable and every other person wrote school start times.
And we had about 165 families from Miller respond on this, or students. So
Parents.
Parents.
Students.
Yeah, and there were some people who didn't respond, so it's,
and
I think
what
about
is our,
12,
how
13
many,
that said COVID.
just to get an idea of how representative, how many students at Miller?
I think he just said 619.
90. Okay.
But they could be duplications, so.
Right.
So you're probably talking, so there's 169 responses, but that could represent 200 or more.
I think the survey told you you could fill it out for each child,
Right.
assuming people listen to them.
But if they checked it by school,
Right.
they
Yeah.
might, they wouldn't be able.
If you had two at the same school.
It's unlikely for each student at each school. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, they would
At Placentino, it's mostly masking is the biggest challenge, which I think is probably pretty imaginable, that they're, what are they called? Unsuccessful maskers?
Yes,
There was a cute term for them.
Yes. Inefficient.
Inefficient maskers.
Yeah.
And COVID, and those were the two codes that came up a lot. Like mostly it's about masking. And then there's a lot of concern about the social emotional well-being. Some
Yeah.
people explicitly attached that to masking, and some people did not. Some people wrote full sentences, some people did not. So it's harder to parse those out in terms of like exact numbers.
Did you put high school and Rams together?
No, I'm getting the Rams.
Sorry.
It's okay. And then, where are we? So Rams is, there's a lot of feedback about communication and adjustment and emotional engagement / emotional support. Those are the big ones at Rams.
In terms of like negative or positive?
Biggest
Concern. Okay,
All of these
concern.
are the biggest issues under the
concerns.
question of, what do you see as being the most challenging part of the school year? So that's it's more of the, at Rams, it's more of the, like the soft skills management, the social emotional, the masking, not the masking, but like the socialization and mental health that comes with being socially distant and wearing masking. So it's less explicitly about the COVID precautions and the COVID protocol and more about the impact that it would have.
Right.
So the high school, it was more about people who were wearing masks or weren't wearing them, or people who weren't taking it seriously and people who were taking it seriously. It was more about like the mechanics of being in the space. And the Rams was just a little bit more about the social aspects and the implications of getting back into it, but also having the masks on as well.
Yeah.
Those are really broad brush strokes. But
Does it, for the communication, does it break it out by grade?
Yes.
Because
maybe if you go
okay.
back to find this, not on here, it
Okay.
doesn't.
Okay.
Because we don't. No, we
They
did.
didn't have, they just have to get the school, not the grade, so that's.
No, it's here. The
Oh, it
grade
is?
is here.
I
I
didn't think it
didn't
wasn't.
do it that way. I just did sort of like made a rough
broader
code book and
brush,
did it
yeah.
that way.
I say that because I have a hypothesis about that. I do think it's probably the newer students to Rams, whereas if you're in 7th or 8th grade, might have a different view about the communication.
Right,
Okay.
because if you're new to it.
Right,
yeah.
versus like a 6th grade parent coming from the elementary
transition.
level.
Yep, the transition is
And it's maybe an
huge.
appropriate transition.
Yeah.
I could figure that out. It wouldn't be that hard to do. I can figure out if there's that pattern.
I don't think it's important. I just think, I don't know that there's anything we can do necessarily.
It's, hindsight.
Perception is reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, but that is something you can do, right? Like that's, if there's a way that we can smooth the entrance and transition to middle school, I think that is something that.
I think it typically is sort of the issue, I think, to me, is that typically the move into 6th grade is actually pretty smooth. Like, they do a really good job of
They do.
onboarding students into 6th grade, but I think the COVID layered on top of that made that just more stressful and challenging. I don't anticipate a repeat of that. I don't think that we've ever gotten that kind of feedback. Usually they say 6th grade we do so great.
And it also may be that the communication is appropriate because we're trying to now have them grow into a different level. So, but
Right.
parents sometimes.
Right,
feel
there's no
that.
room parents, there's a lot of that
Yeah.
change, yeah. So,
Most of the responses are kind of bullet points and short responses, so there's
Yeah.
not a ton of detail. So I can look at
Yeah.
that and tease that out.
okay.
So I didn't go through all the positives. I didn't have time. But those are the general, the broad brushstrokes for each of the schools.
That's cool, thank you. That's pretty cool.
Okay.
That's why I did a qualitative dissertation instead of a quantitative. It takes a lot of time.
Well, I think what's
Code.
also
I coded
tough-
by hand. but
Right.
qualitative.
And I think what's tough is that, we had to create, our own kind of survey here. It wasn't like there was something that was out there for us to, do you know what I mean? So, would we do this differently if we had maybe, I don't know. So I guess, my thought is sort of like, what do we do now with this information? Does anybody have any thoughts they want to share?
Well, I think it may tie in, and we could probably talk about our budget subcommittee and what had come up at budget subcommittee.
Sure.
And other than going over the regular budget, we had also had on the agenda school start times, and we were trying to talk about everything that had a cost. And so just in terms of reporting back on that, we talked a little bit about bus routes. We talked about, ladder. The fact that the schools do share unified arts teachers and paras, and really just trying to, and it's a continued agenda item for budget subcommittee, so that we can kind of get a handle on any costs associated to any future changes, right? Or just looking into what that looks like. And I guess I can, we will be discussing it again next week, right? It's on the agenda.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to cut to the chase, I think, we can see from this data, and we already knew that 7:30 is early, right, for the Miller kids, for anybody. But I think the budget realities haven't changed much. We started to discuss them in the context of, did COVID change anything? Are there a lot fewer bus riders or more bus riders or, whatever. So we just really started the discussion in budget subcommittee, just opening the door on this to see, if anything has changed, if there's any way to, if there's any new information. It's been a couple of years now and a pandemic. And I think that, we didn't have any great breakthroughs in our conversation, but we want to keep the discussion going because, I think all along, as we've talked about start times over the years, we've always recognized that, we picked the best option that we had before us. And, I think that we have to just sort of keep asking questions to see, if there is something that would be better. I think we just have to be open to that. So, I mean, if, we'll keep talking about it in budget subcommittee, and, certainly if anybody has any brilliant ideas, let us know. But, it's a tough one. And I don't think the conversation, it doesn't seem like, enough has changed to, to give us an obvious answer.
Yeah. But I do want to say, though, I do think some things have changed, because when I think of some of the surveys that we did in the fall of 2019, one of the biggest concerns that was expressed by parents was about childcare options, and there were a lot of people that were looking for childcare that would start at 7 a.m. I mean, I have them. I don't know if they were from Brad's stuff, so I have them, and I don't know if we had them online anywhere. But if I can find them, I'll send them to you. But and that led me to be looking for more childcare, and invited the YMCA to come into town to kind of mitigate for that issue. And then we were expanding bridge program and things like that. And now I'm not really sure whether that's what people are looking for anymore. Is that because more people are working from home now? And I'm not really sure.
I can speak to that, because I had an issue with that. So we had to make do last year because it was the COVID year, but also things were different. And so we sort of everyone's situation was so different last year. And my husband's and my work schedules were different as well. So we just sort of really stumbled through last year, and now our kid's a little bit older, and we're just kind of stumbling through again. I guess what I'm saying is putting her in a daycare program was not really an option last year because of COVID, and we didn't feel comfortable and stuff.
Yeah.
So we sort of stopped looking. But that doesn't mean if something appropriate were available,
right,
we wouldn't.
So I guess that's sort of the question.
We were signing the
literally we
already
had them with them.
YMCA at the Lutheran church. So do we need to revisit
right
that?
Do I need to invite them back and ask them if that's something? And then the other question is more about, and not from a budget subcommittee standpoint, is that the reasoning that we abandoned the combining both of them together was around a safety issue. It wasn't around, the money issue was definitely there, don't get me wrong, but we thought that was a hurdle that maybe we could somehow move forward with. So I'm just wondering, the concern was around safety of having both schools, having everybody on campus and dismissing at the same time. And I don't know if that's something that we want to, if people are looking for us to take another look at that or not, because I don't know if the money is, if the safety perspective is not fixable, I don't know if the money.
I think that's,
you know what I mean? That's
if the community could solve the budgetary issue, I don't know how to solve that we have almost 1,300 students going on the campus at the same time, and I couldn't even tell you how many cars. And then we don't have a way to get them off of Woodlawn Circle, and then we have fire safety codes as well. So to get that many people on one campus and also get the traffic flow off of Woodlawn, or otherwise they're going to be there for an hour waiting, so you're now creating another, it's the logistical piece, which then creates the safety piece. So I do think it's important to delve into the financial, but you almost would want, I feel you would want to delve into the logistics first, because even if you solve the financial, if you don't fix the logistics, then you've done all that work and can't make it move forward.
Does it make sense to, based on what we've reviewed in this survey, to entertain a motion or have a motion to put school start times on our agenda to continue this dialogue and then decide what we want to do as a committee looking into this? And I am not satisfied that, I am happy that we had a conversation on budget subcommittee and tried to start to identify what some of the costs are, because coming into this as after the vote and then before the implementation in that 1 year period, because when you voted it, there was that 1 year so that people could have could address some of the childcare concerns and many of the other changes, but I have never firmly understood the cost of it. What is the cost if those two schools are there? But I do think we should have this as an agenda item. I mean, reviewing this survey, the number of families on Miller that responded in that way, and also based on your analysis of those comments, it makes sense that this has to be added on. And I mean, the first year was a very different year, right? I mean, we didn't do surveys on this for a reason, because students were impacted in so many other ways. But now we have this data.
But this is still a COVID, that's what I'm just saying, like, we didn't even make it through the first year of the implementation, and we're still dealing with that so I still think that we need to evaluate the impacts of it, but you were on the committee, John, and you were available for the second vote on it, so.
The school start time task force was Martha DeVoe, you, and Cynthia,
Yep.
and then you voted in May of 2019.
And then we voted again in December. Yes, when you were on the committee.
After the forum, yes.
Yes.
So I want to sort of walk the line between, I think I'm satisfied, even though it's been a COVID year, but this data really does suggest that this is not an ideal situation for Miller. And I'm definitely in favor of putting it on the next meeting's agenda and looking into other options. That being said, I don't want to disrespect the work that you and you and you and you did 3 years ago. And I know there's like new folks on the committee, and I feel like it doesn't seem fair for me to be like, I'd like you to do an analysis of the bus budget, please, because you did do that already, and I believe you that you exhausted those options and stuff. So I guess the question is, what new stuff can we bring to the table, and where can we get new information? And so maybe that doesn't necessarily only come from the school committee. I understand, like, were you going to do a traffic study, or are there like engineers in the town that could help us out, or other folks that might know information that we could call upon to help us solve this problem? Because I don't have a better solution, and I know when you pick the solution.
Wasn't there going to be a traffic study and then COVID happened? Something?
We couldn't engage somebody to do a traffic study, because when they looked for it, it wasn't a worthwhile effort, because everybody that Brad spoke to on that, the realization was that we have one main entrance to that campus, one. And to try to make buses and staff, people always forget the staff cars on this. It's 18 to 20 buses, it's 200 staff cars coming in. That it was never going to be possible to have parents come on campus, never.
So I just have to say, like, there is a feeling out there in the parent population that, well, two things. One, we now have a superintendent who is far more engaged and maybe will not fall asleep at the public forum. And we saw the mountains that were moved last year when they needed to be.
Putting a lot of pressure, though.
And so, well, no, but I mean, we're different. We're in a different place, right? And
a better place.
And much better place. And I think as a person who wasn't on the committee then, it was very clear that he didn't want this to happen, didn't care about this happening. I mean, truly the persona that he put forth was one of mild tolerance and not problem solving. And I do think that he had a dismissiveness that made people very angry, and this isn't going to go away, and Cynthia, to your point about the data being just from this year, I agree with you, but even at that, where it is a difficult year, overwhelmingly the high school students identified COVID as being the high school parents as being the biggest concern. Overwhelmingly, the biggest concern is at Miller.
No, I'm not, and I'm not dismissing that. I'm just saying we're just getting into it, that's all.
Right, but I also feel like we're just getting into it, and it's already a big problem.
So
getting further into it, I don't think it's safe to assume that getting further into it is going to make it less of a problem. If anything, it's going to make it more glaring, I think.
yeah, because I think if something superseded COVID, it is red flag, right? I mean, COVID should have been for everyone the number one problem. To me, that something actually managed to get COVID down and get on top of it, it's something I would also.
And for the other 3 schools, it did.
Yeah,
COVID,
it did,
COVID,
exactly.
COVID or something COVID related was what bubbled to the top.
I just want to throw out there, though, too, and I'm not a data person, there were posts saying, encouraging people, make sure you complain about school start times. And so I'm not surprised that that's all that Miller said. So I just want to be careful about how accurate the data is. I just want to be careful about that.
Yeah, I mean,
But you're not going to complain unless you have a complaint.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not going to go and put something out there just because you told me to, right? I mean, I would do it only if it truly is a problem, and and then I
Right,
would.
and so
Yes.
COVID was the problem for the other parents. That's what I'm,
Yeah, but again, I would still put it out. That's what I'm saying.
The question I would ask, though, and I mean this respectfully, is what do you think is going to be different? And what I mean by that is to go down this path again. It's not a budget issue. Susan's correct. This is whether we can or can't solve the budget problem is not the problem. The problem is that the ergonomics of that space do not work. It was designed to have schools start at different times. They don't start at the same time. And, I think that limits the options. One option is going back to the old start times. Please don't stroke on me. Going back to the old start times. One option
Which I think we need to reassure parents right now.
That's not what I'm planning to do.
But I'm just saying, whether you like the option or not, it is an option. An option of putting Placentino kids with middle school kids and Miller kids with high school kids on the bus.
We talked about that.
That is an option. I think it's a very untenable one, but that is an option. Moving all the start times back further, so now you have kids possibly getting home at night. Is it better to get home at night later, or is it better to get, to leave early in the morning? Again, those are going to end up being the options here. The option of putting Placentino and Miller together, it is a fool's errand. We can go do it. We could try to find somebody to officially who knows, traffic things instead better. But again, think of it from a logical standpoint. I have no places to put the budget, so there is no parent loop. There is none.
Because if it were budgetary, just like I did with full day K, I took that on and came up with a really creative solution. Now, it's not fully solved yet, but I am confident that it will be solved. And I would do the same and come up with a creative solution. If it was strictly budgetary, financial, you would see me move mountains. I don't know how to move a building, or recreate roads or buy land that currently homeowners own. It's residential. We can't take it over by eminent domain, So the logistics, to me right now, are the biggest concern. If we could solve the logistics, you will get me to move mountains and solve the budgetary concerns. I'm truly,
okay,
because I do believe that would be ideal to have those students.
And there are academic issues as well, and I think, Dawn, you brought up the fact of the unified arts piece. That is real as well.
Yeah.
And it's not a great one, but it leads to both a financial issue and a contractual issue. But that's again, if we can fix the first problem, then we take the second one, then the third one. And truthfully, financial is closer to the third one.
Okay, all right, well, let's at this point, let's just, it's 9, I'm just mindful of the time. I've already put it on for the agenda for next week, because we have a meeting next week. So let's, on the off time, let's have some conversation about, what we could bring back to have some more conversation about it next week, because I'm just mindful of the time right now.
Because it is on the agenda for next week, does it make sense to get any feedback from principals and administrators on the issue so we could discuss that next week.
We can, but we've already done it. Like Mr. Day and I have talked on end about this. So, I mean, if you'd like me to have them quantify it, but they've given us all, they are already overwhelmed with just trying to get the Placentino students in the cars and all of that, and they can't fathom any way to do it differently. So we've had that feedback on multiple occasions. We've tried to have them come up with other creative, because they've done, I mean, with the barcodes and everything, you saw the change last year, how trying to get all the kids in cars and everything else, and that was only half the kids at one time. So I'm not sure what you want me to ask them, but they've already given us that.
I'm wondering if
but-
you've had recent conversations with Mr. Keim or...
Oh, yes, yes. As recent as 2 days ago.
As yesterday.
Yeah.
He and I talked at 5:30, in fact.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to work out what the additional FTE need and how the schedule would work. We were talking about that last night. And actually, I talked to him today. He stopped by my office because he was seeing somebody up at the office today. So we talked about it again today. So it's not that something that we're just blowing off. I don't want you to think that at all.
And we could probably find someone to pay a large amount of money to do a traffic study, but they're going to tell us you can't get all these cars. You know what I mean? Like, if I knew someone that could tell us how to get the cars off the campus.
Well, again, there's still no place. Regardless,
That's
there's
the
still no
problem,
place
isn't
to
it?
do pickup and drop off.
Right, that's
Because
the
I'm going to have buses there, and from a traffic perspective, buses have to go in and out, and staff have to go in and out. You know, there's no obligation for us to have parental cars go in and out, and we wouldn't allow them.
Does the traffic study that was done by the select board back in when did I say at our budget subcommittee? 16 or 17, didn't they do one? Did that include
No.
the Woodland campus at all?
No.
I thought that it did.
I can't see why it would. That traffic study
Well, I
is
think
about
it was
lights,
downtown
though.
about the walking trails and things. It was about walking. No?
That was
The complete streets or something, wasn't it? No?
I think that was, the only walking was whether the parking lot behind the firehouse was walkable or something, to put a path in or something, or as a way to the traffic lights again. It was not.
Oh, it was related to traffic lights? Okay.
Right, we've never had anybody be able to
Right,
come down
okay.
and quantify things for us at the schools.
And we did have conversations with Chief Cassidy as well about
Using the emergency access road and vehemently against it, as well as.
it's illegal. we
And,
can't.
and the point I would always make is that, would you want your children having people drive by between the building they want to be in and the playground they're on? Because once you start going back there, you get comfortable back there.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be there, because the road separates the school from the playground, all three playgrounds there.
All right, well, let's talk about it again next week and see what we can, have some consideration for. Okay. Budget, thank you. I was like, where am I?
So we had a budget subcommittee meeting this week to see if we wanted to come up with a recommendation that was any different from what we had already voted, and we decided to not do that. We decided to wait. As you guys know, the FinCom is recommending a number that is 50,000 below level services, and we, just tonight got the information on Norfolk Aggie, which is not great news from a purely budget perspective. But, we feel like we just want to wait till we get a little bit closer to town meeting to, see what other information comes in. We feel like it's not time to change our number at this point. We have another couple of bites at the apple before we have to do that.
Right.
So.
And I've scheduled for us to meet a half an hour before town meeting meets, so that if we do need to vote a number, even the night of, we can do that.
And we're meeting at 6:30.
It's 6:30, and it starts at 7.
And
So please put that in your calendars if you don't have
where
it.
do we meet? Right here?
Here.
Keith, has anything else changed other than the Norfolk Aggie in terms of our budget? No.
Are there any other items we're waiting on in terms of new information that's going to come between now and town meeting?
I mean, the things we'd be looking at is seeing what our turnover is, if we had any additional turnover there, if we want to, capture something that's there. I mean, that's a discussion Susan and I are going to have obviously before we meet on things we believe will happen versus things, because again, it's not just the turnover, it's what we're going to replace it with. So,
Right.
it's, And that's the piece of it, you have a teacher making X leaving, well, are we going to be able to replace that teacher at X minus 10,000, X plus 10,000 this year? That's the challenge, in this type of year, and,
And I've actually already had a couple of new hires come in higher than we estimate, because I've told you how we have a certain estimate that we try to have a placeholder for, and so far, everybody's coming in higher, so that's my worry, is that I don't know that the number that we put in the past is the realistic number that we should be, but we probably need to increase our estimates because of the current staffing concerns.
Right, so ultimately, we'll have to decide as a committee if we're going to stick with our original number that we voted, which was level services plus the psychologist and the ELL tutor, or bring that number down to something closer to what the FinCom is recommending. But that's another discussion for budget subcommittee, and then we'll take it up again at the full committee. Does anybody have any input? Anybody want to?
A magic wand?
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or
None of our
concerns?
needs have changed in terms of school psychologist and ELA tutor. We
No,
still
I mean,
have-
I do have the data, I'd have to find it. I did ask our Leslie DeMondis if she could help put together the data for the numbers increase. I just haven't put it together, but I can share that with you next week once I pull the numbers together about, she went back a couple of years to kind of see the increase in evaluations, and also she estimated that the time commitment to do each evaluation has increased, that she gave me the number of hours, but because I don't have it and haven't had time to put it together, I can give you that next week.
And as our evaluations increase, our reevaluations are increasing too. Is that correct? As we have more
Right. The more initials we're doing typically will lead to more reevaluations.
Okay, we're going to move on to job descriptions. This is a discussion of, I'm going to leave this to you, Dr. Kuska.
Yes, so as you know, I had talked about one of my goals was to try to come up with a more efficient model, and it's part of our strategic plan as well. It's all interconnected, that we're going to be coming up with a curriculum council that has people that are dedicated full-time to curriculum instruction and assessment to be able to be coaches, support teachers. The current structure, while we have excellent people doing the work, most of our staff members that are on the curriculum council are either full-time teachers and they do this beyond the workday, or they're half-time teachers, or they're actually like 9/12. So it varies depending on the role. It's very different in each building. But when we're trying to do vertical alignment pre-K to 12 plus and make sure that we're transitioning our students into having curriculum standards and curriculum maps, and also having structures in place to transition them throughout the district to meet our vision of a graduate, which is ultimately where we want to go, the model makes it very challenging. So if we have, for example, a pre-K to 12 plus wellness person, but that person is a full-time teacher, how does that person get freed up to go to the middle school, Miller School, and then I should say middle school and high school as well? It doesn't happen, even though in the contract we say it can happen. Logistically, how does it happen when they're teaching full-time, right? So those are the concerns I have. It's made it very challenging for the staff. While well-intentioned and hardworking, the logistics of the positions make it challenging, which is why the model is moving towards 4 full-time positions that. Do you want me to go over I think I went over it in the past, but currently we have middle school positions that are 0.5 teacher, 0.5 curriculum role. So there's 2 FTEs there, and that's why I put this one up first, because this is kind of the easiest one. So they're half-day teachers, half-day curriculum, and then with this, we would be taking the 2 FTEs. One of those FTEs would go towards the district position, and the other one would become a full-time curriculum and instructional specialist. So this is that role here. This person would still be housed full-time at Rams, and they would work directly with the curriculum coordinators. The curriculum coordinators would be working at all buildings, and then this person would be helping develop interventions. They'd be working with our current interventionists as well as all the staff to help implement the district work and the district alignment.
This is a 1.0.
1.0.
It doesn't say that on here,
Oh,
but
okay, we can
it
take
says
that.
it on the other ones, but doesn't say it there.
Thank you.
And the
I'll add
stipend
that.
is different on this one? Is there a reason for that?
Yes, there is. Because this role is one building and not, so currently if you look in the contract, we already have, Because the wording in the contract, the curriculum specialist role is not the coordinator role. While they're all teachers, there is a different expectation for what they'll be doing beyond the workday. So right now, the halftime/halftime teacher, halftime specialist at the middle school gets a $1,250 stipend because they're only doing one curriculum. They're doing math, science, social studies. So we're now combining and going back to the $2,500. So that's already stipulated with the contract.
Okay.
And we wouldn't have the same expectation for events beyond the workday. And then similarly, if you look at the full-time, we tried to make these identical, the UA, the STEM, and the humanities roles as far as expectations, because they'll be working together all the time. And these roles already have in the contract, we have similar coordinated positions, even though they're stipended beyond their workday, they'd be working full-time in the role, but the stipend would be for those additional pieces beyond the workday, and the $4,000 was already designated in the contract for that reason.
So this is the only non-cost neutral part of doing this, is just these stipends, correct? Like no.
It's the only what?
Non-cost neutral part. Like other than that, it's just your reshuffling. Other than the $4,000 and $2,500, you're not hiring anyone new.
No, there is actually a slight savings, which I can talk, this may end up helping us on the budget as well. There would be a slight savings. I just have to still calculate that, but, so it's not going to be significant, and that's not the intention of it, but in the end, we believe we'll have an overall savings as well.
But roughly only less than 10,000?
Oh, it's a little more than that, maybe 50,000 or 60,000.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Can I just ask a question?
That's more than I thought.
Why is there only
Well, a little less, maybe 50.
No? Sorry.
50, 55.
Why is there only a curriculum coordinator for Rams and not the other schools?
So currently at the elementary schools, we had 3 full-time people that are interventionists, and they actually do direct teaching, they do the curriculum work, they do interventions, they have multiple roles. The job descriptions doesn't necessarily capture the work that they do, because it's morphed a little bit, but we currently have 3 positions. One is a pre-K-5 STEM person, and then we had 2 literacy, a pre-K-2 and a 3-5 in the new model. Well, we would like to try to keep those positions. Just with our focus on literacy in the past years, while I don't want to discount the need for math, solid math, we've just spent so much time and interest and money in all this training with the literacy, so the principals really felt that given our financial constraints, the best route would be to keep the pre-K to 2 and 3 to 5 literacy in place, and pre-K to 12 will be working with the math interventionists. We still will have the math tutors and literacy tutors in place, and we'll still need to support the math tutors through the district role as well.
Thanks.
Okay. Questions? So, I had asked this question I had a little bit of a concern about the unified arts because world languages was under there, and I just, with a French immersion program, I wasn't sure how that was going to be captured. So I just want to be mindful of that because it is an entire program in and of itself, just the way in Montessori as well. So,
So in the current model, which is not in place this year, in the past, we had a .50 portion of the world language position was dedicated to world languages, right? We did not have, for fine and performing arts and for wellness, we did not have a designated person that was not a teacher. So those positions received stipends beyond the workday. Again, we had the logistical problem that even though we had people and do still have people doing that work, the flexibility to be able to go and actually physically go in the buildings to do that work is just logistically impossible. So with this, we actually are gaining a .5. So if I'm looking at it as because we have a world language program that is rigorous here, I consider that .5 portion dedicated to the world languages, and then the other .5, which doesn't exist right now, provides the flexibility for someone that can also work with wellness and arts.
So do you foresee this potentially being 2.5 positions? If there's somebody that's just doing world languages and then somebody that's doing the rest of it?
I don't know that we'd be able to hire it because of it. I just think, people looking for full-time, I'd be open to that if applicants came in and that's what we could get. But because of that, while I put preferred, I do think the world languages piece to get someone with that background would be, ideally I'd want someone that had world languages and one of the other areas. We're not going to get someone that has all of it. But as I said to the staff, we are still looking to our content experts to work directly. We have grade level leaders.
Yeah, right, that's true.
We have
Yeah.
department leaders, so we still
Okay.
have experts here, and that also get stipends that will be doing, so it's not like this person's coming in and saying, okay, I'm just writing the curriculum maps, I'm doing the,
Right.
you know.
Okay. So
They
there's
will-
still somebody that's gonna be doing it.
They will be the
Okay.
facilitators, and then they will work directly with the
Okay.
experts in the field as
Yeah.
well.
What do the teachers and curriculum leaders currently think of this plan?
Some of, well, I'm still in the phase of dealing with, you know, the impact bargaining, so I haven't been able to have too much conversation specifics. I mean, that mixed bag. I mean, I haven't had a lot of, because of where we are in the process, until we get the go-ahead to move forward, I can't really have too much conversation about that. But I have had some conversations preliminary that there are some people that are very excited about being considered for these positions if they move forward, which they need to. But change is hard, so not everybody's going to be happy with the change.
And these are all from within hires.
That's the intention, but I can't.
Can't
It also has to be.
Right, you
the
have to
people.
post it and-
I believe we have excellent people in the district, and I'm confident that that will be the case, but remains to be
We'll see
seen.
who applies. Thanks.
Other comments, questions? No? Okay, so do you need us to vote to approve these?
Yes, if you could vote to approve them, then we
I'll
can
just do them as I, okay.
get them
So
posted
I
shortly.
would like to entertain a motion to approve the job descriptions for a pre-K through 12 plus humanities curriculum coordinator, a pre-K through 12 plus STEM curriculum coordinator, a pre-K through 12 plus unified arts curriculum coordinator, and a curriculum specialist at 6 through 8. Do I have a motion?
Moved by Stacy.
Second by Catherine.
Moved by Stacy, seconded by Catherine. All in favor? That carries. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have reached the end here. Okay, so items of information in your packet. You should have 3 sets of minutes from the Budget Subcommittee. Thank you very much, Ms. Koshin. And our next meeting date is next week, May 5th, 2022, at our regular time of 7 p.m. And also, please don't forget that town meeting is May 9th, Monday, May 9th. At the Holliston High School auditorium, starts at 7 p.m., and I believe childcare is going to be available. Yes. So I just wanted to do a little plug for that. I don't believe so. I think it's free. It's volunteers.
So there's somewhere here, so there's,
In your office?
Just wanted to know. I mean,
the select board office is working with
Yes,
people in central office to work on those
to
logistics.
coordinate those logistics.
This is great.
Yeah, so hopefully.
Absolutely fabulous. I hope it's all out in the community and everybody turns up. Just to have the kids in the daycare in the evening.
What's the matter? Okay, are we good? All right, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Lisa.
Seconded by Stacy.
Moved by Lisa, seconded by Stacy. All in favor? Thank you. The time is now 9:37, and this meeting is adjourned. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.